to the weekly narrative. This is show number 52. 52, insane. Before I get too far into this stream, I'm going to make sure everything's tight, everything's good, everything's set, because I was talking to myself on the last one for a couple minutes. I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. Delaney, say hi, so make sure everyone can hear you.
What's up, everybody? I'm here. I'm queer. Get used to it.
We're doing stereo again. We're going to try to do stereo more often. Almost, ideally almost every time, because I'm probably going to be leaving the state anyway soon. So let me pull up YouTube here real quick just to make sure we're good to go. If you want to join us on stereo, follow at Weekly Narrative. We're live on there right now with a very clickbaity title. It says Black on Asian Crime and Vaccine Passports. I don't know why, but there are a lot of black people on stereo, I think. So hopefully we'll get some discussion from... Whoops. There we go. You guys don't want to see my restream. You want to see the actual camera. Now we're good.
I was about to stop you, Jeremy, and be like, "Yo, all I'm saying on the YouTube stream is restream." So.
I mean, it's entertaining, but it's not as entertaining. So that's
and it's not as cute as us.
There we go. Let's go ahead and get started. Have you been seeing all this crazy stuff lately on the anti-Asian attacks and stuff? I mean, that seems like every single day there's something new.
Oh yeah, every day there's like a new Asian attack somewhere across the country, and then, they show video of it, and you're like, oh no, who's perpetrating it? And then you look at the person doing the crime, and it's definitely not a white person, but for some reason they blame it on white supremacy.
Well, they've been awfully quiet about it, and that's kind of why we're here in stereo tonight. So for the folks who are listening in stereo, or who may be listening in stereo in the future, we're streaming live on youtube.com/weeklynarrative, and the question we're trying to ask listeners today is, why do black people hate Asians so much? I don't understand it. I'm hoping to get some answers. For those who may be new, I'd have to reiterate that I did come out last week, and I do identify as black. So I'm trying to figure out, why this community that I just joined seems to have such a violent tendency against Asians. And we've got some stories of incidents today that we're going to go over. If we can't, maybe see if we can find some clues. We got Stalking Horse in chat. Dari, Josiah, what's going on? Arian, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the Tuesday night stream. Let's pull up the first story here. Because they work hard and they're successful.
I mean, that's part of it. I don't know. Maybe
that's kind of where my mind was
last
going.
week, or maybe like that gentleman on last stereo stream tried to say about how the United States government figured out a way to give reparations to the Asians for the internments back in the 1940s. So maybe there's a little bit of bitterness because of that, because black people have been waiting around for 200 years for their reparations and still haven't gotten any.
Ooh,
so
that's
maybe
good
it's
too.
a bit of that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I haven't considered that.
I mean, I'm not black, so I can't really speak on it, but it's just from my observance. Maybe that has something to do with it.
I think this is a uniquely qualified podcast to talk about this because you're Asian and I'm black. Right? So
that's true, yeah.
So why do my people hate your people so much? That's what we're going to try to figure out here. We've got an article from nationalfile.com. Video shows a list of suspects committing anti-Asian hate crimes in New York City. There's a slideshow, and they've got pictures of people up. And if you're on youtube.com/weeklynarrative, you're watching the video version of this live stream, you can see there's a unique characteristic about all these people listed as suspects, who have all been arrested, by the way. And none of them are white. They're all black. There appears to be one Arabic man, maybe a little bit of a...
The words underneath the title of it says perpetrators agree to be invariably of black or Middle Eastern descent. So it's either blacks or Middle Easterners.
Thank you. Yeah, there we go. Booking photographs from the latest police crackdown on anti-Asian hate crimes in New York City revealed this week what many citizens already knew. All the perpetrators wanted arrested in relation to the attacks were non-white. The media's narrative regarding white supremacy has been dealt a severe credibility blow. As the mugshots correlate with the government data shows, the perpetrators of anti-Asian violence are almost exclusively non-white. And that's, I was willing to believe that narrative for a while. I kind of assumed that it was a white supremacy thing. But as I was starting to pay more and more attention to this, I realized that almost every single incident that I've seen, like a video or a picture or anything like that, they were all black people. And I've seen at least 3 new ones in the last 3 or 4 days. So why is that?
Yeah, I just saw one. I saw one today earlier of a guy beating up an Asian guy on in the middle of the New York City subway, and like in the middle of the freaking subway, nobody was stopping to help him like at all. It was just guy wailing on him, and I was looking at the comments, and people were saying, "Well, it cuts off before it actually shows what happened before," but the Asian guy threw hands first. And it's like, okay, so still is a justification to beat the living crap out of somebody and leave them for dead on the subway and nobody helped them at all. So it's just it's a weird time.
I do like the fact that they were asking the question, what happened beforehand? Because up until now, up until we never asked that with George Floyd. We never asked that with any of the shootings. We never asked that with any incidents that happened previously. But now that it's not a white person involved, all of a sudden we want to ask the question, well, what happened before? Who created the situation? And it sounds like from what you're saying, maybe the Asian guy started to attack first. I've actually got that video. Let's go ahead and show that here. For those who may have not seen it, I've got this titled under my notes as Black Man Beats Up and Punches an Asian Male in the Head Repeatedly, to give you an idea of what you're about to see on your screen. If you're not into that kind of thing, you can turn away now.
Oh yeah, this is the one I saw earlier.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming there's not another video of an Asian man beating up attacking a black man attacking an Asian man on a subway. I mean, 2 in one day would be a little absurd, but what you're seeing on your screen, yeah, I mean, this isn't like a small scuffle. This is worse than some MMA fights. So the Asian guy is down in the corner guarding himself. He's not even fighting back at this point. And the black guy's landed probably about 20 punches directly on his head as the Asian guy is trying to defend himself. And now he's got him in a chokehold.
Yeah.
The black guy is now choking
him out.
Yeah, and another interesting thing that I want to point out as you're watching this is the fact that nobody else is... There's a African-American gentleman in the foreground of the shot who is just watching. Seems to be entertained.
Just staring.
Yeah, it's entertained. He's watching. There's actually a couple black African-American people watching. Asians watching as well. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody intervenes. Nobody stops the attack. And, so what really happened here? And why did it get to this point? It's very interesting.
I mean, I wish we knew the beforehand story, but it just breaks my heart because, this guy, he's at some point, he's in the defensive posture. He has his hands over his head. He's like signaling like, hey, I'm not going to fight you anymore. And the guy just keeps going. And then he puts him in the chokehold and chokes the guy out. So it's like, dude, when a guy like is in the defensive position and isn't fighting back, like that's your cue to stop hitting. And he just keeps going. And then he just walks off the subway. Like it's no big deal. Just gets off and walks off and like, it's no big deal. And
Josiah says in chat,
disgusting.
usually the videos are edited so you can't see that they're black, or if they are, then they don't mention race in the article or news, so people think it's white. It's interesting that you say that, Josiah, because there was another incident, I believe 2 days ago, of 2 black girls, minors, who tried to carjack, again, an Asian guy, and they
Pakistani guy.
Yep, they ended up murdering him. And the screenshot that CNN not only chose to not show the video or link the video in their original article about the incident, but they showed a screenshot of just the car with none of the people involved. And you have to ask yourself if they would have done that if it was, not black people. I appreciate them trying to cover for my race, but I don't think that infantilizing us is going to help solve the problems that we're seeing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and what was really sad about that whole scenario with that Pakistani gentleman, after the car accident happened, the girls are walking away from the car accident, and all you hear one girl saying, instead of like, somebody help him, he's on the ground dying, she's saying, where's my phone? I can't find my phone. Like it's like your sympathy is only to find your phone and not to not to help this young man, not this young man, he wasn't young, this man who you did wrong to, and try to get him help while he's dying on the side of the street. That I cried when I saw that video because it was so freaking sad.
Their values are definitely in the right place. You can tell. I mean, the iPhone, I'm sure, was expensive. Arian asks questions. Which Asians are we talking about? West Asians, South Asians, or the Oriental type from East Asia? Well, we're all variants.
Yeah,
All variants. This particular
there's
story
lots of
is
us. There's lots of very different types of Asians.
yeah. This particular story is the I don't know, South Asians, I guess, because they're from India. I don't know what those would classify as, but the previous story was apparently of just an East Asian. So the question is, folks, for those who are just tuning in, we're trying to figure out today. We're on stereo. We're waiting for some live commenters to chime in and help us find answers as to why black people hate Asians so much. Because we're seeing a sharp rise in black on Asian crime lately, and we're just trying to get some answers here. We want to solve some problems.
Yeah, we want to get down to it. Maybe open up the dialogue and open up the conversation so that way we can hopefully stop these violent incidents from happening. But until we get some answers, we're just guessing.
Yep, and we don't want to make sure we don't want to assign blame on the wrong person. That would be counterproductive. So, Osis says in YouTube chat, in the Rodney King riots, they said it was because the Asians were racist to them and charging them too much, running businesses in their neighborhoods. Okay, so then we've got 3 theories so far. 3 working theories anyway. We've got this one now from Osis that says that the Asians run a lot of the businesses, and the black people say that the Asians are racist against them, which does make a lot of sense because I know Asians, if you're in their own countries, places like China, they're incredibly racist towards black people. So maybe some of that carries over into American culture. I'm not sure. That's one theory. Second theory, that was Delaney's theory, is that the Japanese people received reparations for World War II, and the blacks are jealous that they haven't received reparations. Am I summarizing your argument correctly?
Yeah, they're like jealous and bitter because they've been waiting for 200 years for their 40 acres and a mule from the United States government, and here the Japanese got it in like 1980 something when George Bush Sr. was a president. So I think there might be some bitterness about that.
Yeah, and here's my working theory. I actually haven't elaborated on this yet, but my theory is that the blacks finally figured out, because of all of the kind of, let's call it, boy who cried wolf cases over the last 4 or 5 years of the white on black hate crime stuff that hasn't really been happening. But as they've kind of been consuming that media, they've learned new things, such as the fact that Asians actually earn more than white people. Asians actually perform better than white people. Asians are basically at the top of the hierarchy as far as races are concerned in America. Maybe we're, it's like crabs in a bucket type mentality where you want to take down the highest. We all used to think that the white people were at the top, so it was all about white supremacy. But now that we've figured out that it's actually Asians who are superior to whites, that they're the target now. So we got 3 working theories, and I think we just had a comment come in stereo. So let's hit that up and see if.
I'll give it a play, boss. Here we go.
Honestly, how you guys doing? Before I even start my comment, how you guys doing? Good evening to you guys. Can't answer that question honestly. You have to ask the people that are attacking Asians. Because I can say not all black people hate Asians. Not all. So, whoever's attacking, your best bet is to ask them why they do, or why they did what they did. That's the only way you're going to get an answer.
I wish we could.
Appreciate the comment. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I wish we could ask them too.
So let's use that comment. Thank you for that question, by the way. And I do agree with you that not all blacks hate Asians, but there seems to be a trend. And one of the stories that I've got here maybe can give us a little bit of insight into a motive, which is really kind of what we're looking for, right? So let me pull this article up here. This is. It's not. It's just a tweet, actually. This is from Sifan Kim on Twitter. NYPD says 65-year-old Asian American woman was walking to church this morning when suspect assaulted her and said, quote, "F you, you don't belong here." Happened in front of 360 West and 43rd Street in New York, I'm assuming, and the suspect there was black. So this guy said specifically, "You don't belong here." So is there kind of like a, do you think it's maybe just a general sentiment of anti-Asian xenophobia in America, maybe?
Yeah, maybe there's that, or maybe he's just a crazy person. Mental illness is a big problem in our
It's true.
country as well, and so maybe he's just a psycho and just saw a 65-year-old Asian woman minding her own business and decided it was a great idea to attack her for no reason and just say, "F you, don't belong here."
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say. Like the listener in Stereo said, you have to ask that person why they did it. And, if he can't give a clear answer, then I don't know. It's sad.
Well, we've got a comment here in YouTube chat that asks a very good question as well. They say, Anthony says, why is this problem coastal, west or east? Not seeing as many stories elsewhere. And that's actually a really good point. A lot of these are from New York City. I think we've seen some from L.A. We've seen some in San Francisco, I think. A lot of them in San Francisco, actually.
That the Pakistani dude that died a few days ago, that was in Washington, D.C., so, East Coast.
Yeah. And the one of the more prominent ones where we saw somebody attack, I don't know, no, I don't think he was black, actually, but we saw an Asian woman get, attacked by a guy who sucker punched her in the face in San Francisco. But just trying to get some answers here. Let's heard some comments come in. Let's jump over to those.
Okay.
Crime is skyrocketing in all the urban areas due to the lockdown. I don't know. I don't think that the crime is just targeted specifically at Asians, but the media is pointing the spotlight over there and definitely taking advantage and using it to divide people even more.
That's a great point. That's actually a really good point. Yeah. This has kind of been my in the back of my head this whole time, is that we have to stop and ask ourselves, has this level of Asian attacks just been happening and now all of a sudden we decided to put a spotlight on it? Or just the violence in general, crime in general, as the caller says there. But we just choose it. There's not really this giant anti-Asian problem. It's just that we choose to kind of create one out of thin air because, number one, it sells more newspapers, gets more clicks, things like that. We just, whatever the spotlight lands on is where the story is created. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I kind of called this like a month ago when the news was getting slow. I was saying there's going to be some kind of phenomenon going on in the news cycle where it's going to be, white cop kills, black dude, and they're going to like claim racism. It was going to be something like this, but I didn't predict that it was going to be like anti-Asian violence going on. So good job, media, for tricking me.
Well, you also have to consider that, we've just gotten rid of the media's cash cow. Donald Trump is no longer in office. They don't have him to talk about every single day. So there needs to be a new boogeyman. There needs to be a new fear-pumping mechanism. And I think this, they had these blue-haired social justice warriors looking around in their office, at stories on Twitter and whatnot. And one of them randomly decided to just say, hey, we see this video of a black guy attacking an Asian person on camera in San Francisco. Stop Asian hate. And that was the birth of this whole Stop Asian Hate movement right there. It's not like a coordinated thing. It just kind of pops up out of random, and then people hear it, they see it, and then the media companies just run with it, and they kind of actually create the reality out of thin air. Maybe like that guy said, the violence has been increasing across the board. It's not specifically just against Asians. It's just that we're now focusing on those specifically.
Yeah, media has definitely been focusing a lot on it because it's just now people are actually paying attention to it, I guess, when the whole knockout game has been going on for over a year now.
Kegel Destroyer says, your eyes are so blue, no homo. Thank you. Yes, those are my... let's see, we got another one that says, Dari YouTube chat says today's show has been on this kick for past 2 weeks. Interesting. Thank you for watching the Today Show for us, Dari, so that we don't have to. Josiah
Right.
says Asian lives matter, Black lives matter, Mexican lives matter. Oops, I'm getting so close to all lives matter. Well, that's kind of the irony, is that we're just going through the groups as they come, and we'll eventually get to the point to where we say all lives matter. For those who are
Yeah.
listening on
We
stereo,
should've-
just want to give a quick update. We are live streaming with the video on youtube.com/weekly narrative if you would like to watch, and vice versa if you're watching and you want to listen. Stereo, download the application and follow at Weekly Narrative. Go ahead.
Yep. I was going to say we got 2 more from that young lady who sent us a message before, so give it another
Awesome.
play.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I seen that video. That video kind of pissed me off. Like, on a whole another level. She's 65 years old. What is she doing to you other than going to church, minding her business? Nothing. The other thing that pissed me off about that video is that the security guard closed the door on her. He didn't go check on her, make sure she was okay. He didn't call 911. He did nothing. He pissed me the fuck off.
That's a good point. I didn't
Excuse
see
my
that.
language, but he did. So that, I so hope they catch him and put him under the jail. I'm serious, because you don't do that to an elderly person. You don't do that to the elderly at all. Like, you have a grandmother. You want somebody to punch your fucking grandmother in her face? Matter of fact, you want somebody to kick her on her stomach and then keep stomping her in her head?
Yeah, he
Fucking
was
idiot. He made me mad. I'm sorry. Excuse my language.
he was stomping
man.
on her head. Let me
Yeah,
let me
he
go ahead and
was.
show that video on the stream now for those who don't know what we're talking about. I showed the subway one already. Yeah, let's go here.
Yeah, you showed the subway one and you showed the old lady. But I appreciate you saying that, Miss Bex, because I feel the exact same way as you. Like, what makes you think that doing that to an old lady like that is okay? Like you said, that could be your mother, that could be your grandmother, your great grandma, and you think that for no reason. It's not like she attacked him first. He like kicked her, and then when she's down, he kicks her in the face. That's not. People are lacking respect right now, and we're just seeing the fallout of it right now.
Yeah, I just rewatched the video, and the stream can see it too. There was like 3 staff members inside the hotel, and none of them go out to help or assist or anything. So that's another common theme that we're seeing here with these videos. The subway one and this one is that nobody wants to help or do anything. There's bystanders in every case where they're just sitting by and watching. It doesn't lead me to believe that anybody actually really cares about this stuff. It kind of leads me to believe that, this whole Stop Anti-Asian Hate thing is just another one of those social media campaigns to kind of drum up controversy,
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think it is. It's people don't really care until something bad actually happens. And then when something bad happens, people come out of the woodwork to say that they give a shit, but they really don't.
Yeah, it's almost as if they're just kind of farming the credit that comes along with saying Stop Anti-Asian Hate, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. It was just like with last year where if you posted a black square on social media, you actually cared about Black lives.
Oh,
but
yeah.
in actuality, you're not actually doing anything to really help the Black community except for like posting something on social media. It's the same kind of thing. It's like clout chasing in a way to me.
Here's what doesn't make any sense to me, and I've seen a couple articles trying to explain it this way, but this is the 4th theory that we were going to introduce here. So we've got the 3 theories that we've all mentioned, but there's the 4th theory, and somebody mentions it in the YouTube chat here. Anthony says white supremacy caused a Black man's foot to stomp on the Asian woman's head. And I've seen multiple articles saying this exact same thing. They've said that white supremacy has tricked Black people into hating Asians, into kind of causing like an infighting phenomenon where they're attacking each other at the behest of the white people. What do you think about that?
Wow, that's pretty powerful stuff for people where it's only like 15 people, like 15 known white supremacists still left in this country. That's some pretty powerful mind control they have on a whole population.
Yeah, that's I always struggle to kind of understand where all this white supremacist power is coming from. If these, if they were the ones that were in control of the institutions, if they were the ones in control of the colleges and Hollywood and Twitter and mass media, then I would say, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of some kind of hateful narratives being spread throughout those mediums, but they don't control any of those. They don't even control a gas station in Alabama. Okay, so you have to, someone's got to try and explain to me where that power is coming from to influence these people in that manner.
Right. Okay, we got 2 more from Bex. Let me play that for you.
I believe after that young man in, I want to say one of them southern states, I want to say Tennessee or Georgia or wherever he was, after he shot and killed and hurt many Asians, like in the nail salon or parlors or whatever they were doing, wherever they were at, like working, now it's just a whole Asian thing. I mean, come on. I don't know. It's just getting sickening.
Come on, man.
Uh-oh. I gotta push back on you on that one. Because the first time you responded, you said we need to ask the people committing the crime why they did it. Now, in this particular case that you're talking about in Atlanta, that shooter who went to all those massage parlors specifically said that he did it because of a sex addiction, not because of racism. So if we're going to follow your model, we got to be consistent here. We have to go by what he says, and it's very interesting that you would even say that, because there was multiple instances where media outlets were saying exactly this. We hear what this shooter is saying that he did it for, but that's not why he really did it. We know why he did it better than he knows why he did it, and he did it because of white supremacy, because he hates Asian people. So, and we talked about how that's a sign of mental illness, where you think you can read other people's minds and things like that. But they want this problem to exist. They want a bigger problem to exist than it actually does. Like, they want white supremacy to be the thing, but there is no indication that it is the thing. So in that particular case, we have to listen to what he said, and it wasn't racism.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't racism. If it was a massage parlor full of white chicks, he probably would have shot him up too. It didn't matter for him what the race was. They all just happened to be
Well, he did
Asian.
also shoot 2 white people.
Oh, he did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 of the 8 he killed are white. Or 2
So
of the 10.
so
I don't know. Yeah, he killed a couple white people.
Yeah, so it didn't matter about the race for him in that certain particular situation. He was just, sex addict and wanted to shoot up massage parlors and stop him from acting on his desires. So, yeah, it was an unfortunate situation.
Kegel Destroyer in YouTube chat says, I do not identify as a racist. Is that how this works? Well, you could try that, Kegel. I'm not sure exactly how that works. I think what you have to do is identify as an anti-racist. I'm not sure. I just kind of skipped the whole... I found my own loophole where I just now identify as black. That way, I'm incapable of being racist anyway. I think that's the easiest path forward. Michael says in YouTube chat, I never knew blacks hated Asians. I love all people, and it's dead with all this hate going around. Well, yeah, one of the things we're trying to do here is figure out if that really is the case. Do black people hate Asians? I mean, when we see the media covering white crime, we're led to believe that there's some giant conspiracy of white supremacy or white hatred, of xenophobia, homophobia, you name it. But in this particular case, with all the black on Asian crimes, they don't seem to be saying the same thing. So is there something more nefarious going on? Or do black people actually hate Asians? That's what we're trying to figure out here.
Or maybe it's just or maybe they're just crimes of opportunity. Like they just see an opportunity to beat the crap out of a person more helpless than them, and they just take it. Maybe it's just that. Maybe there is no hatred involved, but we don't know.
Remember, we just showed the video of the guy stomping on the head of the Asian outside the hotel, and he said specifically, "You don't belong here." He didn't steal anything from her. He just walked up, he kicked her right in the chest, and then he stomped on her head about 3 times and then walked away.
And he didn't steal any. He didn't steal any of her possessions either. So it wasn't like he was trying to jack her or take her purse or anything like that because he thought she had money.
Exactly.
So maybe it's just a mishmash of everything, Jeremy. I don't know.
Nope. Well,
I don't speak.
we're asking the questions. That's all we can do, really. Let's. We got a few chats coming in. Let's hit those up.
Okay, I'm sorry. That is the dumbest theory I have ever heard. So you're telling me that, you don't have the freedom of choice, free will. Like, you can't do anything. Like, the white man told you, hey, you should just kick Asians. Yeah. Like, do you know how dumb that is? That is the dumbest. And if anybody ever come out their face and say something like that, I'm just gonna really disown myself from them. I don't want to be bothered. Like, I need to separate me from you because you seriously like common sense. Like, oh my God. You know what? I don't know what this world is coming to, but I know one thing. We're going to hell in a hay basket.
Well, that's what the media would
Girl,
have you believe.
Girl, we're not the ones saying it. The media is the one saying that it's white supremacy. Like, we're over here just saying what the media is saying. Like, we don't believe it. We are like looking at it objectively and saying, no, it's clearly not white supremacy. There's no boogeyman white man telling these black people to go curb stomp all these Asians. But that's what the media wants you to believe and wants you to put into your brain that, yeah, it's white supremacy.
Yeah, what they're trying to do really is they're still stuck on the anti-white narrative, since Trump was in office. Again, they're stuck in a transitionary period between Trump being in office and then trying to have to rationalize all these crimes that they're seeing. So, of course, they're still conditioned to blame everything on white people, which is why you see stuff like this narrative where the black attacking Asians all over the country is actually white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, right when those attacks in San Francisco and Oakland were happening, I literally saw on one of those daytime talking head shows with a bunch of women, the Asian of the group was saying, even though this was before they knew it was a black person doing it, this lady was saying, we need to stop white supremacy from happening. It's like, you don't even know if it was a white person who was doing it, and here you are saying we need to stop white supremacy. So they are just putting that narrative out there. Before there's even like any idea of who's doing it, they're putting the narrative out there that it's a white person and you need to hate white people and blame white people.
They've already got their end conclusion, their ideal end conclusion, their ideal explanation in their head. They're just working backwards to try and turn it into reality. That's all it is. All right, let's hit those new comments. I think we got another guy in here.
Yeah, we got another guy. Play him first.
Hey, how's it going? This is Legendary Mike, Legendary on the mic. I just responded on you guys' YouTube page, Michael. But yeah, it's sad
Mike.
that all this hatred going around. It sickens me with all this hatred. And as a black man, I want to apologize for the hatred that African Americans are bringing amongst Asians, Americans. It's sad. It really is sad.
Thank you for that, Michael.
Well,
Glad to see you over in YouTube chat.
Yeah, good. I mean, I don't think you need to apologize on behalf of, your people. Honestly, there's just a lot of really angry people out there right now and they just are taking out their anger and their violence in just an unhealthy way. So, it's good that you're doing that, but I personally don't think you need to. As the token almost Asian, kind of Asian, you don't need to apologize.
You're definitely Asian. You've got brown eyes and you're like half Filipino. Come on.
I'm not even half, bro.
Okay, well, you've got some in there. You got plenty to qualify. It doesn't take much, so.
Do you want me to play Beck's her last message, or do we want to play this new guy's name's Ahmed?
We can play them in order. I like your comments.
Okay, let's play Beck's.
No, I'm not saying it was because of Asian hate. What I'm saying is that the narrative came.
Hers isn't playing.
When that
It's playing
happened.
for me. Or it was.
Dang it. Sorry, Bex. Didn't mean to cut you
I
off.
think she was kind of clarifying that the narrative of the white supremacy came after that attack. Maybe I think that's what she was trying to say. Sorry, she accidentally cut her off. But
Yeah, I accidentally cut it off because it wasn't playing on my end. My bad, Bex. My bad.
I think that actually the stop the anti-Asian hate was around before the Atlanta shooting, though. It was just kind of starting, and they got really lucky with that one. They just happened to, come across these 8 Asian people getting shot in Atlanta, and it really added fuel to the fire. So that was the biggest one for sure. But I think it was around before that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Want me to play on med?
Yep.
Okay.
Legendary Mike, can I get the N-word pass?
Well, I identify as black actually, and I think I can bestow that upon you. So I don't know if you need that in writing or not, but I'll allow it.
Oh my goodness, that's hella funny. I love it. Let's try another one.
Hey, right on, my nigga.
Deep Think. I like that username. Yeah, so we got another story here. Let me hop over to, or do we? I think we went through all 3. Did we go through the New York one, the subway one, and the slideshow
We
one?
didn't go. We didn't do. Oh, Andy just posted a picture of the guy who punched the Asian woman. So if you're in New York City and you see this guy, report him.
Keep an eye out. It's about a 6 foot tall African American gentleman. And really, if you're just joining us in stereo here, we want to let you know that we're trying to find answers today as to why blacks seem to hate Asians so much. Because I've seen almost every single day we're seeing a new attack from black people on Asians. Is it a general increase in crime? Is it something to do with the pandemic? Is it jealousy for reparations? Is it the discovery that Asians are actually the ones who are superior in America, not white people? Because Asians earn more and they have, better all-around statistics, longer lifespans and everything. We don't know. We're asking you guys, and it sounds like we've got a lot of people in chat that can help.
Or are they crimes of opportunity, and they know that Asian people are generally probably not going to fight back, and usually they're not going to fight back, and they're going to just take it. So is it just that? We don't know.
It's no problem. Y'all good. I understand. No, what I was saying is that the Asian hate was the first thing that they reported because they were trying to figure out the reason why. And that's what they were first saying. And then after he gave his reasoning, that's when it was like, okay, it's not a hate crime. It's not because of that. I mean, they were saying it sarcastically. Like some anchors were saying it sarcastically. Others, they were just saying it and then doing their job. And then when everything else started happening, all you see now is just Asian hate, Asian hate, Asian hate. Like, if they didn't say it at first, I believe that it would never have been said. You get what I'm saying? It's just like what they did with Muslims and the Indian Americans,
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, there's a sect of the people on the left who are on social media and running these media companies that still would argue that is racism, despite the fact that he came out and said specifically it wasn't because of that. So I think you're partially correct, but there's a lot of people who want racism to be a thing so badly that they are still pushing that narrative. So
yeah,
even
I
to this
agree.
day.
I mean, I think like the whole Thomas Sowell approach where he says, the only reason that racism is still alive today is because people keep talking about it and keep bringing it up and keep thinking that it's a thing. If we just stopped talking about it, if we would stop making it, a problem, it would probably go away. But unfortunately, there's just like a certain mindset of people that don't want it to go away.
Mike D.
2 things I want to mention. When it comes to black on Asian crime, especially like robberies and stuff like that, a lot of Asians are known for their mistrust of banks. So they carry a lot of cash. And they work on cash businesses, and they carry jewelry around. So they tend to get robbed more. That's kind of a known trope about them. So I wanted to mention that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was the Boulder, Colorado shooting that we're magically not talking about anymore. 10 white people were killed. No one talks about that. No big deal. Alisa just mowed them down. He even used a quote unquote assault weapon. And that story just totally disappeared. Really odd.
Yeah, that's a good point. The anti-white narrative was so opposite of what was actually happening in that shooting that they didn't even want to cover the anti-gun angle of it.
Yeah, well, and then once they realized that the dude wasn't a white guy and he killed mostly white people, they were just like, "Oh, that's fine. Like, we don't want to talk. We don't care about that. Like, we're done reporting on it. We did our due diligence in reporting it initially. Now that it's now we figured out all the facts, it's like, no, we're not going to continue to talk about this anymore." Which is sad. Go ahead, Jeremy.
That's what's great about being in the media or being on social media or trying to be, involved in any of this kind of stuff, spreading these stories, is that you can, once this happens, you can blast out, this is white supremacy, this is what happens when white people have guns, or whatever you want to say, which is what they did. And then you get 10,000 retweets, 50,000 likes on your tweet. The message gets out there. You lead people to believe that white people are the problem. Maybe 2 days later, you find out that it wasn't actually a white guy who shot the people. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to go back and correct anything. You just carry on with the rest of your life. You pump that message out there, a complete and absolute lie, but you got away with it without any consequences. And I think that's really what we're getting down to at this point in covering all these kind of stories, is that even where it's a black person attacking an Asian person over and over and over and over again, they can just say it's white supremacy because nobody's going to hold them accountable. And then they just run off into the sunset laughing as white people end up getting demonized for black on Asian hate. Or, I mean, what was it, 10 people, they were all white, were killed in Boulder, Colorado?
Yeah, something like that. He got quite a few people.
But it was white supremacy. Yeah. No.
Yeah, total white supremacy.
Look, I'm just tired, honestly, because I'm half Mexican and half black. So, just imagine being around people who assume that I'm full black and they say something about Mexicans, and then I get pissed off. And then I come at them and say, okay, well, I'm half Mexican. My father's Mexican. My father didn't come here to take away your job or whatever you want to say. My father's not a racist or a rapist. He's not a murderer, and he's not a drug dealer. But that's what you want to say about my father that you don't know. I don't like it. So when we all stop acting like we all have high horses and come back and be humble, then I believe everything will go away. That's just me. Learn how to be humble and just go about your life. You're living. Be happy.
So
You're correct.
I think Bex is following the, who was it? Not Samuel L. Jackson, but the other black actor, the narrator.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman strategy. That's the Morgan Freeman strategy, where basically Morgan Freeman was interviewed and he said, I think it was Pierce Morgan that asked Morgan Freeman, what do we do about racism? And then Morgan Freeman said, just stop talking about it. If you stop talking about it, if you stop hyper racializing everything, people will slowly stop noticing race, and it'll slowly just kind of fade away. But this is the reason why they have to talk about it in the news constantly. It's because they want it to be at the top of your head. They want it to be hyper racialized. Everything's got to be racialized because, if we learned anything from being under Donald Trump's America for 4 years, America is super racist, even though all the countries are flooding all their racial minority people into this country. They still want to come here despite the fact that we're quote unquote racist. They have to do it specifically to keep you in that state of, she said she's tired. That's exactly what they want. They want you to be in emotional distress, because when you're in emotional distress, you're easier to manipulate. You're more likely to, purchase products, be a good capitalism slave, get in debt, and all that good stuff.
Well, and I like the fact that she brought up that at the end when she said, why don't people just focus on themselves and all that stuff. And that's something that me and Jeremy preach all the time, is everybody's just so fixated on fixing all these external problems that they have no control over, that they're failing at helping their immediate people and immediate family. So all these children are not being raised with, good morals and values, and instead they're being raised in front of TVs and to be radicalized and to, just hate, hate. And
I mean,
that's the
they go to
biggest problem, I
preschool
think.
and they're given the book "How to Be an Anti-Racist Baby" or whatever the hell from Ibram Kendi, which is just
Yeah.
absolute propaganda to make kids hyper-racialized from the start, right out of the gate. Can you
Yeah.
imagine a less fair start to life when you just pop out so innocent and then instantly you're just hyper-racialized? Oh man, that's a recipe for disaster and unsuccessful life. All right, we got Jabia.
So here's the thing about this conversation about racism. Do I believe racism exists? I do. But not for the reasons that other, like for example, I don't believe that, you know, disparities in outcomes between different groups means that there is like racial oppression. That's not the type of person that I am. But I do think there are studies out there, certain data points that does kind of point towards there being some racism, especially in America, some racial bias. That said, I think the larger conversation is racism the reason why certain groups, in particular African American, I care because I'm African American, is racism the reason behind our lack of progress in certain areas in 2021? And that, I think, is a much more interesting debate and conversation to have, because I think sometimes we use racism as the scapegoat when there are other reasons for lack of progress.
Ooh.
Not only does he have a golden voice, but he's got golden points.
Yes, good job, Jabia.
Uh,
That's a beautiful point that you made there, my friend.
I would agree with you 100%. And this is, I get a lot of flack for trying to tell people this. I've gone to, just for reference, I have a YouTube channel where I go to protests. I talk to these people all the time. I ask them questions. I try to offer solutions. I went to a Black Lives Matter protest once with a sign that says Black Families Matter. Because, in my opinion, I think that if the black community were to spend a lot more time fixing their personal relationships, their homes, their families, that would correct 90% of the problems that they perceive in these statistical disparities, as you so aptly bring up. Because, and this is exactly where they want them. They want these people trapped in a state where they're blaming externalities that they can't actually fix. They don't want them to think that they have the power to fix their own problems. They don't, which it would be their personal life, their decisions, their family. Having this, becoming a single parent, doing things like crime, drugs, whatever. There's a lot of personal choice involved, but they don't ever want to give any black people agency. Have you heard that these? Anytime there's stories about criminal populations in jail and how we're overpopulating jails, they always frame it in a very interesting way. They say we're imprisoning people at higher rates, or we're putting more people in prison. No, we're not putting more people in prison. People are committing crime, but they remove all the agency from the black people. They act as if the black people are incapable of making their own choices. They act as if the black people have no power. And I think that's actually a lot more racist to implicitly remove all the power from black communities by saying that they don't have the agency, they don't have the power to make their own decisions, that they're under the complete control of white supremacy, when they really do have a lot of ability to change their own outcomes.
Yeah. Well, and also too, like President Barack Obama even said this, like if you come from a single parent household, you're more likely to not graduate from high school and end up in prison. So just the simple act of like getting married and raising your children with a family gives your child the biggest leg up that you can't even imagine. And I think that that's one of the bigger problems in like some minority communities. And like if you look at Asian communities, they get married, they raise their children, and they do like a multi-generational family structure, and that's why they're so successful. They're out earning even white people in this country. And if you look at even the white communities, like white people, like for the most part, yeah, they're getting married and having children, but you're seeing the single motherhood rate climb and climb and climb. And it's just, to me, it's like the thing that we can advise is to get married, raise your children, work hard, don't blame people for your problems. Just don't commit crimes, and just raise your children to have some morals.
I had a bomber tweet today, and I tweet for fun, by the way, so I'm not trying to say that I'm like, I only have like 100 followers, but it was on a reply to the story about the 2 teens who were charged with murder in the carjacking death of the Uber Eats driver Mohammed Anwar. And guess what? My response was this. I took the role of the leftist who and summarized their argument in one sentence by saying this: another perfect example of the white supremacist system imprisoning blacks for no reason. And I got more followers from that comment than ever because it was a perfect troll. You can't tell if I was somebody on the left actually following the party line, towing the party line, saying the lines, the scripted lines of, "Well, blacks are just getting imprisoned for no reason," or it's so absurd that I could also just be somebody on the right pointing out how absurd that argument actually is. And I got love and hate from both sides, which means it's a perfectly calibrated troll. But people were agreeing with me. People on the left were like, people with pronouns in their bios were liking it, sharing it, all that kind of stuff. And that shows you that this is exactly what they're trying to say when they talk about imprisoning blacks, disparities in outcomes in black communities. It's not ever the blacks' fault. It's the white supremacist system.
Yeah.
We got a comment from...
Just reading the...
Oh, go ahead.
I was just reading YouTube chats, so...
Well, feel free to call them out. There's a bunch of them in there.
Yeah, there is. Josiah in YouTube chat says, does racism exist in extremely small percentages and in some individuals? Yes. Does it exist as some vast systemic issue? No. Anyone can be anything they want to be with hard work and learning from their mistakes.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that, because we've had black people reach the pinnacles of all aspects of society: presidency, sports legends, entertainment legends, bodybuilding legends, you name it.
We've sent black people to space. Come on now.
So there's no system in place to keep them from getting there, but they like to think that there is, and I gotta give them, you gotta give them a little bit of credit, because it does feel good to blame your own lack of success on other people, other externalities. Like if I fail at something, I don't want to blame myself. That feels like crap. I want to blame somebody else. It's somebody else's problem. And I think they get caught up in that a little bit too much. We got a comment here from Paul.
What is going on, you guys? I just want to introduce myself. Black on Asian crime, vaccine passports debate. You know something? I really wonder if they, eventually they're going to ask people, if they've been vaccinated, and if they haven't, if you're going to make sure that you have proof that, you don't have COVID before you go onto an airplane, because it's such a tight little space. We all are we're all basically all like in a tin can, like sardines. And it's just the truth. But, I don't know. Everybody has their own opinions about it. And then I just think this black on Asian crime, it's just sad. We all just need to love one another. Two minorities fighting like that, that's just really sad. I mean, but fighting all together is just sad. End the racial wars.
There we go. Get behind that. Yeah, the airplane thing is a good question. Now, what they'll say to that is that they have great air filtration systems on those airplanes, and I've flown multiple times in the last year. I didn't get sick from any of them, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's if the question really is, if we've been flying without these vaccine passports for so long, without vaccines, and there doesn't seem to be any major impact from it, then why do we need to implement vaccine passports?
Right. Well, I mean, we're going to see these vaccine passports, and then we're going to see a surge of black market fake vaccine passports for people like me that aren't going to take the vaccine. And, I still want to travel and do stuff. So where are my black market people to sell me a vaccine passport?
It's a good question, though. Let's give our stances on the vaccine thing, since that's also in the title. Why don't you want to take the vaccine?
Just the more that I research about vaccines in general, I just don't want to. I just don't want to put something in my body that I don't know what the effects are going to be. And also, too, I learned that if I have an adverse reaction to a vaccine, I can't sue or hold any of these vaccine manufacturers liable for what happens to me. So if I die or if I get, super sick from it, and I
Uh-oh. Reconnecting with young degenerate Lesbo.
whoops,
You're back.
whoops.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Did you hear what I said at the end?
Nope. You said you
Okay,
you can't
so
you don't have the ability to sue them if there's anything negative reactions or whatever, basically.
Yeah, and I just don't want to potentially subject myself to harm like that from a brand new vaccine that took less than a year to create. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Steve said he got the shot 2 days ago. He woke up ripped and able to climb walls. Now I want to get the vaccine. That'd be awesome.
Right? I mean, I'll just get the fake, COVID card so that way I can go get my free Krispy Kreme donut.
Yeah, I think it'd be worth it to do a counterfeit for the Krispy Kreme, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to have your private information shipped off to a tech company like Google or Facebook, which is then going to be shared with everybody that you use. Because if you think about it, vaccine passport, what does that mean? It means access to services. So Google has to share or whoever it's going to be that's going to store your medical data, which, by the way, Google does want to collect and store and have that data. I do cybersecurity for medical companies, and the medical companies have been dealing with requests from Google for their data. They're getting into this business. Anyway, you're going to have to give out your information to Google. We'll share it with Uber, share it with the airlines, share it with your gym, share it with anybody who asks. So ask yourself if that's a world that you want to live in. I'll reserve my judgment on that, but I will say that I'm hesitant on the vaccine for two reasons. Mainly because, number one, I have like a 1% chance of getting hospitalized from this thing anyway. Number two, I've already had it. It wasn't that bad. Number three, I know I didn't say three reasons, but the third reason is that there's no long-term safety data on it. I'll take it. I'll take it in like 30 years when I'm actually at risk, and I'm not obese either.
Right.
This really only kills obese people. That's what people don't understand. And why don't people understand that? Because nobody has talked about it. Fauci doesn't talk about it. It's been over a year, and how many times have you or anybody in chat or anybody on stereo? How many times have you heard Fauci recommend that you lose weight because being obese is the number one risk factor for complications and death from COVID? How many times? Zero.
I haven't heard him say it at all, personally.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. Nobody has. And do you think it's strange that they aren't trying to reduce the number one risk factor? We talked about it on the stream multiple times before, but come on.
Yeah, Fauci doesn't want to be fat phobic because, that's a thing now.
CDC doesn't want to be fat phobic. Fauci doesn't want to be fat phobic. Healthy at any size.
Nope.
Cosmo magazine says I can be obese and I'm still healthy.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody wants to be the bearer of bad news for these fatties out there and tell them, like, hey, like, you're not healthy. And if you just would lose like 100 pounds or 200 pounds or however obese you are, your diabetes that you have would probably be more manageable. The lung issues that you have would be more manageable. Your heart wouldn't be like screaming, trying to pump blood through your body because it's just got so many layers of fat. But again, nobody wants to be that bearer of bad news, and doctors have been the bearer of bad news for years. And now these doctors that are the personal doctors and the general practitioners that are saying these things to people, now they're being accused of being fat phobic. And they don't want to be fat phobic.
Not only fat phobic, but this ties right back into the racism thing, because we've seen multiple instances of like black people posting on Twitter or social media saying the doctors aren't treating me with respect, or the black person has died, and then people comment and say, oh, they were mistreated by the doctors, and then you see a picture of the person and they're always morbidly obese. So they're
Yeah.
again. This is the same exact cases we see with the shootings and with these other race issues. Is that they want the racism to exist so much that they're ignoring reality, and they're ignoring any personal responsibility that they have. Because if they had to, if they were to admit that it's because they're fat, that's also accepting personal responsibility. We can't do that. We don't. That's the last thing that we want to do is actually accept any kind of personal responsibility. So let's just blame it on racism. Let's just blame it on fat phobia. And let's just continue to have the economy be staggered, lock down all of our restaurants, our gyms, and whatnot, because predominantly, and call me out if I'm inaccurate in this, but it's largely because people are fat in America. If you don't think I'm right, compare our stats with other countries. Why did Asia recover so fast? Why was Korea over it in like 2 months? I'm pretty sure China was having pool parties 6 months ago, like giant pool party raves with no masks.
Yeah, they were. I wanted to join them.
I know. We showed video footage from the Chinese New Year on our stream, and it was like New York, Times Square in China, where nobody, well, I think some of them were wearing masks, but they were jam-packed like sardines out there because they were already pretty much over it. So, again, no fatties in China. So is COVID anything more than a fat issue? I've got an article up here from Yahoo News. This is something we covered previously, I think a couple weeks ago, because I like to stay right on top of the science. CDC science came out, just a reminder for those. It said about 78% of people who were hospitalized, placed on a ventilator, or died from COVID-19 were overweight or obese, according to a new report from the CDC. The findings show risk of severe COVID-19 illness rises sharply with elevated body mass index, especially for people younger than 65. So it's exactly what we've been saying all along. This virus only kills fat and old people. So let's see what we got a comment here in stereo. Jabia.
Yep.
So let me ask you a question, you two, right? In many ways, I'm sure you've heard the comparisons between America today and the Roman Empire, before it fell, right? The parallels are kind of freakishly scary, as far as the diversity in the population, no connecting thread, right? Because it's one thing to have a diverse population. It's another thing when you don't have a connecting thread, meaning no shared language, no agreement on values, et cetera, which we don't, and neither did Rome. The increase of migrants/immigrants, Rome had that as well, right? Like, are you guys worried that we are watching kind of the fall of America and we just don't know it yet because we assume that America is always going to be around? Like, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Oh, Jabia. This is the recurring theme of our entire YouTube channel, my friend. We are 52 podcasts in that are roughly 2 to 3 hours a pop. And the main theme that we talk about with all these is we're documenting the decline of the West right now. So in a general, yes, we agree with you. And the parallels that you draw with the fall of Rome are very apt. The big points that we try to point out with the fall of Rome and the fall of the West are the destruction of objectivity. I think that's the biggest one, where there's no such thing as 2 + 2 = 4 anymore. That's not real. There's no such thing as sex. There's not a binary sex anymore. Your genders are completely subjective. Your experiences are completely subjective. You have your own personal truth. There is no one truth. There's no reality. But you also brought up some other great points too, like the diversification of people and also the hyper independence of the individuals as well, where we got this hyper individualization happening. There's not a collective culture that we're all cohesive. Used to be back in the days of Ellis Island. You came to America from whatever country you came from, and there was not an expectation per se, but just an inbuilt drive to become integrated with American culture. Now we're mass shipping in immigrants into America, and there is no expectation of any kind of integration. No, you can come into America and you can have your own little Mexico, or your own little Somalia, in Minnesota,
Your
or
own mini Cuba.
yeah, whatever it is, they're fragmenting society into pieces. So yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. We're definitely seeing what could be the beginning of the fall of the West.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Well,
sure
I think
there's
the West has been falling for a while now. That's just my personal take.
yeah, the sexual revolution as well was a huge part of it.
Yes.
We're not forming families anymore. We're just kind of being degenerates.
Yep. All these lesbians and gays out here just slutting it up and not conforming to societal norms. And I'm the token lesbo, so I would know.
I'm pretty sure, and I'm not trying to pretend to be an expert on Roman history or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure there was a sharp increase of sexual degeneracy right before the fall, and that coincided with the fall of objectivity and the rise of subjectivity. So, yeah, there's a lot of parallels for sure. But as Stalking Horse points out in chat, Rome didn't fall in a day. That's correct.
Yeah.
So, who knows how long it's actually going to take, or if it's just going to be kind of like a soft takeover from China, or what the real deal is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be a soft takeover. It's going to be from the inside out. That's how it's going to happen.
The Chinese have done so well at subverting American culture that people don't realize that these stories of division, the racism and stuff, this is all propagated by Chinese algorithms, by their interest in media companies, by their interest in the social media apps that we use, and they have a lot of influence over us, and they want this division, and they're trying to sow it as much as possible. They told us that when they met with our delegates in Anchorage 2 weeks ago. They're basically laughing at us for our Black Lives Matter problems and for our transgender problems. They know exactly what they're doing. So, all right. Let's hit, we got Lisa back. What's up, Lisa? Welcome back.
COVID can present some serious respiratory issues. So it's not surprising that if you're overweight or obese, it's already difficult to breathe, and and then you catch a virus that makes it even harder to breathe, on top of all of the other things that could possibly come with it, right? All depending on the person. So generally speaking, being overweight, can make it difficult for a person who is already having health problems. That can just be said generally speaking. If you're overweight or obese, it doesn't make things easy.
Come on, you can be healthy at any size. That's a lie. At least that's what I was told by
Lisa,
Cosmo.
Lisa, you bigot. Don't you know? You could be healthy at any size, even 300 pounds, and your lungs are just having a tough time, and your heart is having a hard time pumping blood, but you're healthy. Come on, man.
I guess
Get with it.
This new stereo feature where you can see they got like text to or speech to text now, where you can see the preview of what they're saying. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, stereo.
Yeah.
Making some leaps and bounds
Yep.
here. Okay, yes, this one's more related to democracy and empire falling. Let's get this one from Lisa.
Cruel philosopher, that is so on point. AOC just recently posted, are you tired, or are you a part of a late stage capitalist society? And that's exactly where the world is at. The industrialized nation, the capitalist nations, that's exactly where we are, in the late stages of this theory, of this experiment that we call capitalism and democracy. Every empire falls. The fall isn't always dramatic, and it might not always be a very far fall, but every empire falls for sure.
It's definitely true, and we got a comment that I want to address in chat from username Done Now. Maybe he's already gone from chat because he was done as soon as he typed the comment. But Poor joke attempts aside, he says, are we dealing with the downside of too much freedom? I have been wondering that myself lately, actually. Do people have the capability to live productive lives, well, in a completely free society? You know, is this the inevitable end result if you give people all this freedom? Will we just eventually devolve into sexual degeneracy and the pursuit of hedonism, the forsaking of any kind of hard work, the forsaking of effort, the forsaking of meritocracy, blaming externalities for all of our problems, looking for short solutions like drugs, pharmaceuticals to band-aid our problems as opposed to actually solving our problems by going to the gym and eating healthy and things like that. Getting a photo shoot for the cover of Cosmo that says being obese is healthy as opposed to actually losing weight and trying to be really healthy. You just convince people that being fat is also healthy. So yeah, and it's a good question. I think it's worth discussing. What do you think, Delaney?
So in the YouTube chat, JC Steck says, never too much freedom, lack of morals, lack of role models as well. And I kind of am on that boat. Like, I think, yes, we do have like a lot of freedom and we have a lot of choices, but I think when it comes down to it, it's the morals and the role models that are being presented to us is the bigger issue. There's not enough children are being raised with decent parents and, good role models to look up to. And especially when, minority communities, the only people they have to look up to are these basketball stars or these football stars or these rappers who don't really have any kind of like moral substance to bring to the table when it comes to teaching the youth. So
it's
yes, there is.
It's a
combination.
culture thing. It sounds like it's
a culture thing.
Yeah, to summarize what you're trying to say, what most of the chat is saying, because we got Josiah chiming in, says it's not the result of freedom, it's the result of bad parenting and boredom and stuff like that. No major wars, which I would agree with. Zoidberg also chimes in, and I think he generally agrees. But I think, and this is where I've been trying to lead the discussion lately, because people are talking about how there's all this white supremacy and black people are oppressed and whatnot. And I'm experimenting with this new line that I think we could actually spread and it might be productive. And it's spawned out of the videos that we saw out of Florida, where in Miami, all these black people were fighting each other in the streets, brawling at bars day after day after day, fighting. Black chicks were twerking in the middle of the streets as waiters were chasing other black people around for not paying their bills. It's absolute chaos. And somebody posted, some black conservative guy posted, basically asking the question, or saying, we have a problem with black culture. And I think that ties into directly what we're saying here. So maybe it's not too much freedom. It's just that as the culture degrades, as we lose that family structure, we lose the conduits through which we transfer tradition and culture, which is the family. If you don't have a family, you can't transmit traditions and cultures into the next generation. So you get people who are basically just completely blank slates. They just absorb whatever the community is in, which is exactly what you said, Delaney. Rap, basketball, stuff like that. It's just whatever the popular culture is at the time in their community, instead of traditions and behaviors from their families. So that's but the question then becomes, how do you reinforce a structure, the long-term civilization? How do you keep a culture together? That's what the question becomes.
I mean, that is a really good question, because it's not an easy fix. I mean, you can't just go around telling, hey, stop being single parents, stop having children out of wedlock and being married to the government. Mm-hmm. You can go around saying that to people, but that's not going to change hearts and minds. So I don't know. I don't know what the long-term solution to that problem is.
To go back to what Lisa said, she was correct in that it was an experiment. This whole thing we're in right now, America, is an experiment. And I think at the beginning, the founding fathers, not to get the whole founding fathers thing, I'm not a historian by any means, but they knew that there had to be some element of religion to this, which is why we've got in God we trust and all that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the conduit, the centralized conduit through which the culture was supposed to be transmitted. But that has been dissolved. That's gone now. We don't really have that anymore. Religion is kind of gone. Well, we got the new religion of wokeness, but that's not a really good replacement for Christianity. And I think it'd be hard to argue that Christianity is not an essential element to the founding of the West.
Yeah, well, we all, like, people who understand it, like, we have Judeo-Christian roots. As much as people be like, no, we don't. They weren't. It's like, no, they were. The Judeo-Christian roots. They knew that those two religions were they had pretty good ideas in the Bible and in the Torah. So yeah, let's not just completely obliterate the ideas that, you know, founded this nation and founded a lot of nations.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we went wrong. And whether or not you agree with the religious aspect of Christianity, the book is in and of itself a really good guidebook for how to run and maintain a civilization. You don't have to believe in all the other stuff in there, you know, like walking on water or whatever, to see the value in the Bible's ability to be a architectural document for how to run a society. King Xenomorph in the YouTube chat says, it's frustrating. We're being lied to in real time to our faces. COVID deaths, the death totals, also elections. Yeah, well, the truth is out there. You just have to work a little bit harder to find it. I think that people have kind of I don't want to say entitlement, but there is kind of a sense of entitlement lately that I've been seeing from people that think that they are just, they deserve to have the truth handed to them on a silver platter without having to do any work, without having to do any investigation, without having to sift through a lot of garbage. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you're entitled, King Xenomorph. I'm just saying that people think that the truth should just be handed to them when I don't think that would ever be the case. We got comments stacking up in stereo. Let's get through those.
So, I don't remember who said the comment, are we dealing with too much freedom? But I have been thinking about this for like the past couple of months. And even before the whole COVID lockdowns happened, because I think there is some truth to that statement, right? Because America was, the land of, freedom and opportunity. That said, we had strong cultural traditions and pressures from the, beginning of the country that people followed. And if you notice, as we've moved away from cultural pressures, we've seen kind of a rise in the Marxism and the, postmodernist rhetoric, talking points, things of that nature. And it perfectly coincides with people gaining freedom, right? I don't think, and this sounds crazy coming from somebody who's an American, but I really do think there might be something where if people are too free, a country falls.
Well, that's what we do here, Jabia, because we like to have open conversation. We like to think out loud, and there, it does, when you say that, you're like, oh, as an American, it seems crazy to say this. You're right, it does seem kind of crazy, but we're just exploring this idea, okay? So nobody can get upset at the fact that we're saying you have too much freedom. I'm not trying to advocate for any kind of authoritarian takeover or anything like that, but we're just thinking out loud, and I think there could be some aspect to that. There's also here, take this angle to it as well, though. Maybe this is why people want less freedom. We're seeing it in all respects in America right now. People want less freedom. They want vaccine passports. They want economic lockdowns. They want to be told what to do. They want to have to be forced to wear masks. Why? It's exactly what you said with the Marxism comment, because your freedom is directly correlated to the amount of risk that you could possibly take in society. So if you're failing a lot, or if you're a failure, or if your community is failing, you have the freedom to make the choices necessary to either fail or succeed. And to avoid the acknowledgement of that, they want to reduce their freedoms. They want to have the government give them paychecks. There's a story going right now in Sacramento, which is where I'm at, and Delaney's at as well. These businesses cannot find people to fill their positions after just opening up. We just opened up a couple weeks ago. businesses can't find people to hire. Nobody's applying because they've gotten so used to the government just giving them money. They don't want the freedom to have to go out and find a job. They like just having the money given to them. So people are telling us, or at least some portion of the population is telling us, that they don't like freedom. They don't want it. They don't need it. They want passports, vaccine passports. They want mask mandates. They don't want to have a job. And they want your speech censored. They want everyone kicked off of social media. You name it. There's 1,000 different things we can list to show that indicate that people don't want that freedom, because with that freedom comes what? Responsibility.
Yeah. Too much freedom, too much responsibility, and there's just a certain segment of the population that doesn't want the responsibility anymore. They've had a taste of it, and they're like, "Oh no, never mind."
Like, wait a minute, I can just sit at home and collect a check, and I don't have to go out and work, and yeah, why wouldn't I do
Right?
that?
I don't have to do anything. Yeah, why? Like, of course.
Josiah says in YouTube chat, I just went to Santa Cruz, and almost every single store had for hire signs. No one wants to work because their unemployment continues until September now. That's right. Yep. The wrong people are being put in charge with no morals, no belief, no principles. Yeah, that's correct. This is King Xenomorph. That's a good way to summarize exactly what's happening, is we don't have principles anymore in anything that we do.
Yep.
Especially with, just talking about ideas, political ideologies, nobody holds any principles. In raising families, in golden rule, following, doing what you would do to others. Nobody has principles anywhere anymore.
Yep.
Let's hit these next comments from...
Got more on stereo.
Yep, go. Do it.
Do it.
Black on Asian crime? When did black people start doing crime on Asians? Like, what happened to the... What happened to the Korean War? Was that black? Was that European against Asian? The Korean War, the Vietnam War. What is this black against? Like, you mean the whole entire black race is against the Asian race? Where is that coming from? What black is representing the majority? What? It doesn't even make sense. Obviously, a European had to come up with this, because in order for it to be black on Asian crime, it would have on Asian crime. We don't even see them for real. We don't even see them. So where's I'm still trying to understand this. Black on Asian crime?
Yes, sir. So you were a little late to the stream. We've been doing this for about an hour and a half now, but we've went over several examples with videos and pictures of the crimes that have been happening in about the last month. We've seen a sharp spike in crimes against Asians in the last month. You may have seen hashtags on Twitter like Stop AAPI Hate, stuff like that. That is largely directed towards these black on Asian crimes, because if I'm trying to keep count, just a rough count anyway, I think 95% of all the ones that I've seen were black perpetrators. I don't know. Is that about the ratio you've seen, Delaney?
Oh yeah, it's mostly majority black men, and I've seen some black chicks beating up Asians too, but it's mostly black men.
Yeah. So the question we're doing here, T, is just trying to figure out why that is. Why do blacks? I mean, maybe you can answer. You sound like an African American fellow, as am I. But maybe you can give us some answers. Do you see anything happening in the community, relating to Asian people? Any narratives around Asian people that might shed some light on that? Here's a comment from Bex.
I'm going to just be devil's advocate, but I'm not going to say
I like
black
devil's
culture.
advocate.
I'm not going to put that in there. What I'm going to say, we have a lot of people that's not teaching the right things. And if these people were to teach the right things the way that we were taught when we were younger, when I say we, I mean all of us, because we all grew up completely the same to me. Some may have had more, some may not have had more, but we all learned one thing, and that's to work hard and to still care about others. Like, you want others to treat you a certain way, then you need to treat these people the same way that you want to be treated.
Golden rule.
Is that there's no respect, period.
So who teaches that respect? Who teaches those things, Bex? That's the question that I have for you. Who teaches that? And it's not teachers, I'll tell you that much. Teachers are supposed to teach kids about math and geography and history. It's
Science.
yeah, it's the family. And what has happened to the family in the black community? Do you know what the single parenthood rate is in the black community? And then the second question off of that is, do you know what the consequences of raising a child in a single parent household is? Do you know how much more likely they are to fail out of school, to commit crime, to become addicted to drugs, to become single parents as well?
Yeah, I mean, I get like the defensive.
Uh-oh. Lost Delaney on the audio again. Reconnecting with the young degenerate Lesbo. There she is.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I get the defensiveness about like saying it's black culture, but at the end of the day, like looking at it objectively, we're seeing it happen in real life. So, I mean,
well, the good thing about identifying culture as the problem is that you now have the power to change it. Whereas if you blame it on white supremacy, if you blame it on slavery, you can't do anything about that. And coincidentally, anything you could do about that is through what medium? Oh, the government. That's weird that politicians would be interested in trying to get you to vote for them to fix your problems. Whereas, in this theory, if it is the culture, guess what? Now you have the ability to fix the problem. Don't you want that? Don't you want the power?
Yeah.
Don't you want the agency? Not you specifically, but I'm saying, the people in the black community. Don't you want that power?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel if I identified the problem as culture, I would want the power and I would want the ability to fix it. Just blaming it entirely, like you said, on white supremacy, like you can't fix that. You can't change that. You can't, like, sure, we could get rid of all the 15 white supremacists left in the United States, but that still won't solve the culture problem. So
We got T back up again. Let's see what T says.
Weekly narrative and young. The culture is together. It's just we are the creators of culture. So
Bingo.
The culture is being redefined, and even us as a people don't even recognize what the culture is because it'd be a waste of time. You're really trying to say this, but it's a very
You got a leather couch?
Like I said, just keep watching as events fold. You'll see it all come together. It's just that time right now where it has to be confusion because so much has been destroyed from the past, and there's just lack of trust in anybody being able to lead besides ourselves. So we'll fix it from this point.
So you nailed it. You said exactly what I said right before that. Go ahead.
no, I appreciate him saying that because that's exactly what we want. It's like we want the community to take control of their culture and to fix the problem because they're the only ones that can do it.
Exactly.
Like, you can send your kids to school and being taught by these teachers that are brainwashing your children, but if you're not actively involved in your children's lives and shaping how your children see the world and how the world sees your children, the onus falls on you to do that, not on the world to fix your problems. So yeah, take control and fix the problem.
Well, the one thing you said that was critical there was that their community creates the culture. That's exactly correct. Now, that means you have the ability, and not only the ability, but the responsibility to adjust that as necessary. I would take an argument with the assessment that they have their culture. I forgot what his terminology was, but he basically said they got it on lock or something like that. I think there's a lot of statistics we could point to that would indicate otherwise, but at least he understands that having control of your own culture is and fixing it yourself. Don't rely on the white man. Don't rely on the Europeans to fix it for you. Don't rely on the government to fix it for you. You can fix it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Take the reins on the pony.
There's too many lost souls roaming this earth, causing chaos
Lost
to
souls.
disrupt what should be. It's supposed to be peace, it's supposed to be love, it's supposed to be respect, it's supposed to be honor, it's supposed to be integrity. All these things are supposed to be. But then you have all these lost souls that is here on this earth roaming and influencing those that are like on the fence. They don't know whether they want to be loyal or have those type of values in them, and they don't know if they want to run ragged, like go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're influencing them, it's like the serpent and Adam and Eve. I would say that's the best way to put it. That's what it's like. It's like everything is happening all over again.
It's lost souls leading other lost souls and having children and teaching their children to be lost souls.
That's exactly why you need to have a set of principles handed down to you from your parents. Because if you have principles and you have that that moral foundation through the traditions that are passed down, then those temptations mean nothing to you. It doesn't matter. I could indulge in any number of temptations. I could go out and get myself in a bunch of debt, get involved with a bunch of usury. I could go gamble. I could get involved with drugs. You name it. I could do it. I have the ability to. I have the resources to. But I choose not to because I have principles. I have, moral foundation in me that's guiding those decisions. I'm tempted no less than anybody else out there. I'm tempted no less than that homeless guy that's literally 20 feet behind me out on the sidewalk right now. And yet I don't fall victim to those temptations. Because why? Because I have a solid set of principles that I follow. And I will pass those on to my children, making them resistant to those temptations as well. The reason why society is falling victim to those temptations is because nobody's passing those down. Nobody's telling the kids how to deal with those things. They're telling the kids that if there's anything wrong with your life, you can blame it on this guy over here, or that white supremacist over there, or whoever the president is at the time, instead of looking inward. So, Josiah says in YouTube chat, what do black music videos and artists teach? They don't teach integrity, nor good values, nor anything like that. Same could be said of other races' music videos, but it's not good either way. Yeah, it's kind of a...
that goes to like the whole media and the entertainment industry and just how they want to divide us through art and through culture that way. That's because that's an easy way to infiltrate people's minds.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you don't have a strong family foundation, then you're just completely open. There's no walls up around your mind to evaluate or block out bad ideas, bad ideologies. It's just open. Like the Vikings can just come in and raid. They don't even have to climb over a wall. And that's what the media gets to do to these kids' minds. Mitch says, I'd say it's a big thing that has to do with it is people are talking about it too much. A couple Asians get attacked and they talk about it on the news, makes more people do it. Yeah. Yep, definitely. It's where we choose to put the spotlight. So we've just chosen to spotlight all the Asian attacks that are happening, when in reality, black on Asian crime has been happening for this whole time. We just haven't decided to start a social media movement about it. Stop AAPI hate, or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Accountability. Don't say that word, Anthony. We don't want to talk about that. Accountability. That's
Yeah, that's an evil word, accountability. How dare you?
Dave says, yeah, but you need an ID to get the vaccine passport. Well, this just creates a whole loop of, unsolvable problems, because if we can't, the media will have us believe that there's millions of black people out there that don't even know what an ID is. They don't know where to get one, and they don't have one. So how are they going to get a vaccine passport? It's a good question. All right. One more from Bex, and then we got Jabia on deck.
How I was brought up in the 90s. I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid. So I was always taught it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
So it wasn't just my mom or my dad or my immediate family. It was my neighbors. Like my neighbor next door, my neighbor upstairs. It was everyone on the block. Like, they all knew me. And they would go tell if I did something that I wasn't supposed to do. And all that went out the window. Like, now it's, oh, don't touch my kid. No.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your kid to stay in their goddamn lane. Like, what happened to that? When did we lose sight of it takes a village to raise a child?
We were raised in a very very rare time, Bex, because I was born in the 90s, and I was raised in the same kind of that same kind of universe as you, where I had my mom, my dad, my brother, aunts, uncles, grandma, but I also had the neighborhood as well, looking out for we all looked out for each other. And you're right, it just kind of went out the window for some reason. That idea and that moral, that principle of honor thy neighbor, or respect thy neighbor, honor thy mother, thy father, just the basic kind of rules of life just kind of have gone out the window over the last like decade or so.
Well,
And I don't know how to get it back.
you know what happened there too, right? And I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but it was the media, because the media pumped this fear campaign for several years during the early '90s and late '80s about or maybe it was late '90s, child abductions. So like my age group, I'm 32. I was the last person to ever play outside. Kids don't play outside on the streets anymore. I would ride my bike around the neighborhoods like miles away from my house every single day, and my parents would never know where I was, and I would know who some of my neighbors were and stuff like that, and they would definitely tell on me, parents, if I did anything wrong. But they don't have that anymore. Why? Because media pumped fear into these parents' heads that child abductions was a thing that was happening on a large scale, so kids can't play outside anymore. And I mean, that was during a time when I did have Nintendo 64. I had a PlayStation, so you can't make the argument that there was I had Sega Genesis, I had all that stuff. It wasn't video games. I had video games, but I still played outside. But again, the media coincidentally destroyed the whole community by just saying that there's a rash of child abductions happening, and all of a sudden, just like that, almost overnight, no more community. So.
Yeah, no more staying outside until the street lights come on. That kind of shit. That was the rule at my house. It's like you can go outside, play, and then come home when the street lights come on, and then we'll have dinner and hang out and spend time as a family. There's none of that anymore. Very rarely do I see kids playing out on the street. Well, especially in my neighborhood because it's the hood. But
and no cell phones either.
My old neighborhood. Yeah, cell phones too is another thing.
No, we didn't.
Kids are just on their phones.
We did all that without cell phones. That's what I'm saying. So, there's no like, hey, let me just call you anytime because from anywhere. No, we didn't have cell phones. So we were doing all that without cell phones. My dad had a special whistle, which he would go outside and he would whistle really loud. And if I was within like 2 blocks of anywhere, I would know that it's like dinner time or something like that. Later, Dave. Thanks for joining the stream. For those on stereo who aren't aware, we do also simultaneously do a video stream of this on youtube.com/weeklynarrative. When we have articles and videos, we do show those on screen. Let's continue on. We got a comment here from Jabia.
Also, to the woman who said that she didn't want to say it was necessarily black culture, one thing that I do think we need to say is that an absence of a culture is just as bad as bad culture, right? Because to a certain extent, when she said, that she's not going to say it was black culture, I did think to myself, what would I classify as black culture, right? Like, a lot of people like to say that hip hop and, black culture is synonymous. I don't think so, though I understand why people say that. But I think a larger problem is that black people, African Americans, don't really have a culture anymore, which is just as bad. And so it's kind of semantics to say that, well, it's not black culture. It's we don't teach people anything. Well, then you're talking about an absence of culture, which is just as bad. So yeah, we definitely have to take the reins in our own communities and begin to kind of instill those, hardworking values in our children.
Bingo.
Just like that. Bingo, my friend.
Yeah, actually,
that was a good one.
I've never thought of it that way. The absence of culture, which is probably really what you're seeing right now. It's an absence of culture, a vacuum, where if you think about it, blacks used to have, for example, lower single parenthood rate than white people in the early 20th century. they probably had culture back then. And yes, they were still on the plantations and stuff, but guess what? They had an incredible culture while they were still back then. Now, all the we don't have to talk about. I don't have to give the regular disclaimers of plantations are bad, Jim Crow is bad. We all know that, but I'm just pointing out a comparison for you to a time when they did have culture, to a time when parents were very careful about when they had their kids and how they raised their kids. Nowadays, again, 80% single parenthood rate. You see videos of these moms twerking with their little kids in the background with like their 4 little kids from 4 different baby mamas, or 4 different dads. There's definitely some kind of vacuum there.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. I mean, it's just, too many people are afraid to say that there's a lack of culture or there's a vacuum of culture. And because, they'll be deemed racist. And it's like, no, like, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to point out that what I'm observing and what I'm seeing happening is a lack of culture.
Well, what we're doing,
or a lack of good culture.
What we're doing is less racist than what the left would do, because what the left would say, again, is that blacks have no agency. They have no power over their own circumstances. They're completely under the spell of white supremacy and under our complete control. On the contrary, we're saying they have all the power. They do have the agency. But unfortunately, with that comes the responsibility. You can't blame white people for all your problems anymore. So, amen to that. Definitely, guys can... sounds like, if Jabia, you got to have some kids, man. Make sure you have some kids and raise them right, because you definitely sound like you're on the right track.
You've got a good head on your shoulder, my friend. And any children that you are blessed to have you as their father are lucky, very, very lucky.
Stalking Horse in the YouTube chat says, notice how well dressed the civil rights protesters were in the 1950s. Yes, that's a great point.
Oh yeah.
So that was notice the time frame there, because I think everything started to go bad in the 60s, and I'll leave it to you to figure out what happened in the 60s with the black community. I think most people know. We got Robert Curley.
Racism is a tradition. We can easily erase it if we all try to work together on it. But yeah, it's a tradition. It's taught, passed down through generations, and yeah, there's only one race in my opinion, and it's the human race, and we all bleed red.
So I don't know what that means. I don't know what it's passed down through generations, because a couple generations ago we were like lynching and dragging black people behind trucks and straight up killing them. I don't know if I haven't seen one of those in a while. That's an extreme example, but you kind of get my point there, is that I would need some examples of what kind of behaviors are passed down through the generations. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe he's talking about those 15 white supremacists that are still in existence, like they're having kids and passing on their white supremacist ideology to their children. And same can be said for like black, and same could be said for like, I know a lot of black people who hate white people and hate other people that aren't black, and are passing that kind of mindset onto their children to hate everybody else and don't trust anybody else that doesn't share the same skin color as them. So I think that's kind of maybe what he's talking about a little bit, is just like that mindset of like mistrust of anybody that doesn't look like you.
Oh, there you go. I like that. So yes, this is actually based in science. It's called in-group preference. It means you are more likely to not only like, but favor people in your own racial or whatever group that you in. It could be it's race, your community, your family, whatever. And you're more likely to view people of other races unfavorably. There was some data that just came out about this, where basically every race sees themselves as above other races. It's not exclusive to white people. It's exclusive. It's every race does it. It's a biological thing. All animals do this as well. It's just a phenomenon called in-group preference, and this, unfortunately, for the people who would cry about racism from that. There's also scientific data that shows that the in-group preference does not correlate with any kind of actual differences in behavior towards those groups. So yes, we all have in-group preference toward our own race. Maybe that's what he's talking about. But no, it
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't inherently affect your behavior towards that race.
Dang, Stereo's on fire tonight.
Yes, sir. We got T. T's back.
So we would say that there's black on Asian crime. Can we say that there's police on melanated people crime? Because we've seen a spike increase of police officers, predominantly white police officers, European police officers, in the execution and killing of black men and black women, even children. So why is the narrative about police crime on black unarmed citizens not being talked about, or nothing's being done about it?
I wouldn't say nothing's being done about it. I mean, we burned down every city in the country last year over the period of like 6 months. It caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage, and continue to have protests every day because of it. And there's a trial right now, so we do hold those police officers accountable. I'm not sure if you're aware, but Jarek Chauvin is actually on trial right now. I think it's the second day, so it's not as if these people are just getting away with it. And I think in every significant case of police violence, they've been there was an investigation that went up to at least the state's attorney general to decide if there was a case to be brought against them. And when there is a case, they're tried. So is there crime happening from police officers on black people? Yep. Is it a big problem? I don't know. You'd have to give me some numbers to back that up. But is it being let go, or is it being treated as crime? It is being treated as crime. If you were to take a peek at the stats, I think somebody in chat helped me out here. It was like 24, or was it even less? 19 unarmed blacks killed by police officers last year. Is that right, Delaney?
Yeah, I think it was like less than 20 that were unarmed and killed by police officers last year.
So if you were to ask me, in a country of over 300 million people, where we have several hundred million police interactions every year, and you told me, as an objective observer, meaning if I was an alien coming down from Earth and I'd never seen anything on Earth before, and you told me the statistics, you told me those numbers. You said, hey, alien, this is how America is. We had 150 million police interactions last year, and 19 black people died as a result of that. 19 unarmed black people. Do you think the alien would say that's a major problem? Or do you think the alien would say that doesn't sound like a major problem? I would tend to believe the alien, the objective observer in that situation, wouldn't think that's a major problem. Now, if we were talking about 1,000, then I'd say, where's the sign? Let me get out. I'll protest with you, because that's a major problem. But 19, it seems pretty low to me.
Well, and also too, like, what about melanated people killing other melanated people, and there's no accountability on those crimes that are happening with that. Like, I think that is a bigger issue to address in that community than police officers shooting unarmed black people.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I mean, if it's melanated lives that we do really care about, I think it would is consistent to think that they matter no matter what the situation is. For example, I think 2 weekends ago there were 15 people shot in Chicago in one weekend. That's almost as much unarmed black people that were killed the entire year of 2019 from cops. So I didn't hear anything in the news media about those guys. So do Black Lives Matter, or do we just hate cops? Because it sounds like you just hate cops, which would lend additional merit to my argument that we just don't like responsibility in this country, and when people hold us responsible for not following laws, then we hate those people.
Right.
All right. We got
Holly. I get it. I get it. I mean, cops do suck, and they definitely do pull people over for stupid reasons. But if you know what you're doing and you know how to take care of yourself, you'll generally walk away from an encounter with a police officer. It's when you don't know what you're doing.
That's another good point too. Yeah. How many times in those shootings, Mr. T, give me a stat, give me a rough percentage, in how many of those cases did the suspect either resist arrest or get violent with the police officer. If you can tell me that, then we can get a little bit closer to the truth. But let's just not default to cops are evil, because there's I don't think we have enough evidence to say that. Here's Holly.
There was a whole bunch of things that happened in the 90s when I was raising my children, who are almost 30 now. And the number one thing was the self-esteem movement. And that completely took away the parents' ability to shame their child. You look at the generation now who are adults, and they absolutely have no shame in their behavior.
Yes.
It's constantly blaming other people. And I think that's one of the major problems that we caused as parents of the millennials, is that self-esteem movement. You had to make sure that your kid was always happy, and you had to make sure your kid was always comfortable, and they never felt ashamed of their behavior. And look what's happening now.
Yes. It's a great perspective from a parent. Neither Delaney or I cannot get that perspective, obviously.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true. And we've identified the lack of shame in our culture, just in general, as a major problem with dealing with these other issues as well. Not just the children issue and the lack of community that started in the 90s or whatever, but that's absolutely true. Good point, Holly. Let's see. I was messing with my camera a little bit. Just got to make sure it's still good. All right. I've got another one from Holly.
Also during the 90s, I just thought of this one. The satanic panic went around, and that was
Yes.
along with the child abductions and all that stuff. So there were a lot of parents that were terrified of their kids being abducted by these Satanists that were going to sacrifice them in the woods.
Yep. If you listen to your heavy metal record backwards and you hit the satanic messages and your kid's going to get mind controlled, all that kind of stuff. Yep.
Not gonna lie, Holly, my parents were definitely one of those that thought that I was gonna get abducted by Satanists. So
All right.
but they didn't not let me go out and have fun and do things, but they were just be aware and be mindful of your surroundings.
Josiah says in YouTube chat, kids are taught they're special for no reason, and then they get to the real world and realize now they're spoiled brats with no morals. Yeah, and then they expect everything to be handed to them. They don't want to have to work for anything. So that is absolutely correct. Great points. Great points.
Everyone's special. No one is.
Yeah. Zakan.
Y'all make black people sound so pathetic. Like there's millions of us here. If millions of black people were running around doing everything that y'all saying that they're doing, it would be a lot crazier out here. We do have black scientists and judges and police and all types of shit. Y'all make it sound like everybody lives in the projects with no parents and shit. And these statistics have just numbered everybody. Y'all just make it sound, y'all make black people sound like they're racist, pathetic, attacking Asians now, as if all black people grew up in poverty. And that represents all black culture. Poverty and rap music. It's a lot more to us than that, you know.
I agree. And when we portray that narrative, keep in mind, we're portraying the narrative that the media wants you to believe. The media wants you to believe that you don't have any power over yourself, that you can't become scientists, like you mentioned. You can't become, successful in life, which is exactly what we're saying. We're saying that you have that ability. The media wants you to think that there's some kind of white supremacist ghost out there that's keeping you from being successful, which isn't the case.
Yeah.
And when you tell your kids that, it destroys their ambition, because they think, why would I even try?
Right. I always have said that from the very beginning. It's black people are just as capable and just have just as much ambition and just as much drive to do anything that they want to do. But unfortunately, the narrative that's being fed to us, and also too, I live in the hood. I'm surrounded by black people, and I see what's happening around me with the community that I'm surrounded by. And we're not saying not all, but
Not
it's
all.
just not all. It's just that a big chunk of the black community is under this this spell, this mind virus that we talk about on our live stream on YouTube is being just experimented on in the black community. So
Dari says in YouTube chat, the black scientists, lawyers, cops, or the guy that just goes to work at the factory are too busy working, and they're not committing crimes. So there's a little rebuttal from the YouTube chat there. And JC Steck says you have to look at the crime numbers. Who is behind the crimes? Yeah, I think that's largely why we're saying this kind of stuff. JC brings up a great point, is that when you look at the crime statistics, when you're talking about, as T was talking about, police interacting with black people and shooting black people, you do have to keep in mind the statistics on the crime and who's committing the most amount of crime. Interacting with police, this is going to be a controversial statement, but that's why I'm here. Interacting with police is largely, not 100%, but largely a choice. Because if you commit a crime, you're inviting an interaction with the police. If you're hanging out with the wrong people who are committing crimes, you're inviting an interaction with the police. And for the most part, now I've been pulled over without justification, so I'm not immune to that. But that's why I'm saying largely, not 100%, largely a choice to interact with police. Let's continue on here. T's back.
I can't say the blame is not ours to take away. We can never say we can't blame the Europeans for our problems. We can't erase what they done. That's not our place. We can't change the past. Nothing we can do or say can change that. So because that happened, it can always be brought up. If it never happened, then it wouldn't be the availability for it to be brought up. But because it happened, we can't change that fate. So because it happened, it gives the person a right to always be able to talk about it, because the truth isn't for nobodies to hide. So anybody can talk about what the truth is. And a lot of the things and positions that we have to get ourselves out of is because of the Europeans. So discussing and bringing it up is not blame. It's actually stating history. And as far as we know, we learned about Christopher Columbus, and we learn about that every year. But why we don't learn about the racism?
Okay. You got any comments on that, Delaney, before I respond?
I want to hear what you have to say first.
So you're right. You have 100% right to bring that up anytime you want. I don't disagree with that at all. You can talk about it all day. Bring it up at breakfast, bring it up at lunch, bring it up at dinner. But the question you have to ask yourself is, the energy that you expend talking about that, could that be better spent somewhere else? Are you going to protest against the racism that happened in the past? Are you going to advocate for political ideas that somehow correct the problems of the past? Or are you going to spend that time, that energy focusing on yourself and your own success and your family, which I would say is a much better use of your time? There's not going to be any return on investment by just sitting around and talking about history all day. We all have, no matter what race you're from, we all have something in our history, in our past, that we could point to and say, oh, woe is me, I would succeed, but if it wasn't but for that one incident that happened way back 200 years ago that I never even participated in, we could all do that. And we're not here to try to have a contest of who's the most oppressed, but we've all got that ability. It's just a matter of whether you want to focus your energy on the future, developing yourself, changing to the ability that you have within the circumstances that you're in, or sitting around and complaining about what happened in the past and hoping that somebody else, aka the government, changes it for you. Are you the kind of person that wants everyone to fix the problems for you? You want the government to fix the problem for you? You want the government to give you reparations? Or do you want to take control for yourself? See, again, I think he's kind of in this mindset of he still hasn't accepted that he has the power, which is why he wants to talk about the past. He wants to talk about history. He still kind of seems in the mindset of, we need some kind of corrective action. We need reparations. We need the government to correct this wrong. When in reality, that's not really going to solve your problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm all for talking about history and all that stuff, but like Jeremy said, what do you gain by bringing up history and something that you weren't involved with? You're in the present. You're not in the past. Like, The amount of energy you're spending talking about past things is wasted energy that you can be spending on making your future and your present a better present and a better future for you, not only for yourself, but for your children, for your parents, for your siblings, for your aunts, your uncles. So yeah, it depends on how you want to spend your energy, I guess. If you want to spend your energy just talking about it, then go right ahead. You have that freedom to do it. But when when it's 10 years down the line and you realize like, oh my God, I've wasted all my time worrying about things that I wasn't involved in, when you could have been going to school, getting a job, working hard, finding a partner, having children, raising your children with morals and values and structure and respect, then it's gonna be time wasted, my friend.
Yeah, to put it succinctly, here's the question you can ask yourself. What is going to have a greater impact on the success of your child? If you spend all your time and energy crying and complaining to the government and waiting for them to fix everything for you, politicians to fix things for you, or if you spend all of your time and energy doing exactly what Delaney said, making a stable household, getting a good parent, good mother, getting a good job so you can pay for that kid's health care, so you can pay for that kid's schooling, what is going to have a greater impact on the success of your lineage, the success of your child? Ask yourself that. All right, let's go kind of fire through these here.
Black people do not teach hate. Black people teach defense against hate. And sometimes in war, you may need some hate in order to survive. Not to say that, you have to handle things like that.
Jesus.
But black people don't teach hate in their homes. We don't teach that. We may teach our kids to protect themselves against hate, and you don't get to choose. You just getting thrown in the fire of hate when you're born. You're going to have to face it one way or another. So, but black people don't teach same shit the Nazis or the Aryan Brotherhood teach. You don't know.
No, I'd have to disagree with you on that one. The fact
I'd have to disagree as well.
You're teaching your kids to be defensive against hate. You're telling them, their brains implicitly, that they're about to enter a world that hates them. That is more oppressive than the actual oppression that exists in the world. You're destroying their ambitions. We already talked about this, where you tell your kids they're going to fail. You tell your kids that the world hates you. That annihilates all ambition that a child would have. That's exactly the kind of mind virus that we're talking about. You don't tell your kids that kind of stuff. You don't tell your kids that this is how you defend. The whole world hates you, son. This is how you defend against it. No. It's an awful parenting decision.
Yep.
Bex.
I was just thinking, and I'm listening to everyone, and I swear, I'm so happy I swiped into this conversation.
Yeah.
But
happy to have you.
If everyone took a chance to do 23andMe or Ancestry and actually took a look at where their bloodline comes from, like trace all that, and maybe they can see a hint of everything in them, just a hint, then maybe they will just stop. Just stop. Because I feel like if you hate one thing, that means you honestly hate yourself. Because at the end of the day, you may have that one thing that you dislike in you. I mean, come on. That's just me. I'm trying to have a little faith, but hey, that's running thin too.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying the conversation, Bex. Glad to have you here. Appreciate your thoughts.
Yeah, we appreciate your thoughts and your comments. And girl, I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I'm trying to hold hope, but it's hard. It's hard when you encounter people with a certain mindset and that cannot see that the way that they're thinking of the world is just, it's a degenerative to their overall welfare and their overall future.
Yes, JC in the YouTube chat says, content of your character. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what matters, the content of your character. Not the color of your skin, not the melanin content. Come on. Zakan.
And if we did teach hate in our homes, we wouldn't be We will be like every other group. We will be segregated like everybody else. Everybody else is segregated. The Hispanics are segregated. The Asians are segregated. The whites are segregated. Like if we taught hate in our homes, we would be probably more like them, where we wouldn't allow them in our neighborhoods or go into their stores or anything. We would just stay far away from them like they do us. Not to say that they teach hate in their homes, but they're teaching one thing for sure, and that's stay the hell away from black people. I think we all can agree to that.
I think it goes back to the in-group preference thing. I mean, every race is going to prefer their own people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have some black friends that would her family would disown her if she came home with a white boy, that kind of stuff. So is that not hate? Like, is that not preference?
Content of my stomach is most important to me, says Arian.
we narrative. I see you like numbers and stats, man. But everything ain't in numbers and stats, man. You're not gonna know about everything. Some things. I mean, some statistics can be manipulated. I can say 80% of black people do this because I polled 1 million black people. If I set a poll for 1 million black people and I say 80% of that million do something, does that mean the other 40-something million do it? You know what I mean?
See, these aren't polls, and I've heard this exact argument because like I said, I've gone to a lot of protests before. I've interviewed black people who are advocating for Black Lives Matter and stuff like this, and I told them the same exact thing. I'm like, hey, did you know that blacks who make up 13% of the population, really 6% because half of those are men, and the men are the one that's doing all the murders. They make up 50% of the murders, and they say the same exact thing. They say, well, no, those statistics are made up. Well, the problem with that is now you're getting into conspiracy theory land. You're telling me the FBI crime statistics, which are reported by the local crime outlets, the local police departments, you're telling me those are fake? Now we're kind of
Jeremy.
going into... Yeah, what's up?
Hey, Jeremy, you're getting a little choppy on stereo.
Oh, okay. You sound good. Maybe it's just your connection.
Well, I unplugged my headphones just to double check and make sure it wasn't my headphones, but yeah, it was choppy even when I disconnected my headphones. I don't know. Maybe it is just me.
Probably internet. We'll keep going. We'll power through, see if it gets better.
Okay.
But yeah, we once we get into the land of your statistics are wrong, then it's just conspiracy theory land. Like now you're telling me the FBI's making up statistics and stuff. I don't buy that. Let's go to T.
All right.
Interesting that you bring up melanated people killing melanated people, as if European people don't kill European people. I believe they make it very dramatic. It's called Lifetime. European people kill European people and then get paid off of it by turning it into movies that they can watch over and over. Or European people killing European people, but it doesn't make it to the news. Matter of fact, it's not even labeled as European killing European. It's just labeled as a man that killed his family. Or a woman that ran her children off the road. Or a woman that starved her children. Or a pedophile. So they just label it differently. But when it's black, it's an African male. But when European does it, they're a shooter. So every race kills their own people. Look at World War I, World War II. It was European war.
Yes, every race kills their own people, but you're wrong on the classifications that we give there because we only call people mass shooters when they're white. Let's get that done 100% clear right off the bat here because there are if you look at the mass shooters in the last year, the predominant race in that list is African American because mass shooters just counts as, anytime I think more than 3 people are shot. And they are predominantly blacks. But when was the last time you heard about a black mass shooter on the news? Never. It's always a white guy, an incel, or, you name it. The media loves to hate on the white people when it comes to the mass shootings. So you're right in that they're not classified in the same manner, but it's not going in the way that you think it is. It's going against the white people. And we don't talk about, we cover up the black mass shootings. We don't talk about those. We'll publicize the white mass shootings until the end of time.
Yeah, well, and also too, the melanated people shooting melanated people. They're only making up like, you know, a small percentage of the population, and they're committing a disproportionate amount of the crime. So you would think that a smaller percentage of the
Right.
population would commit a smaller percentage of the crime, but that's not the case. That's the point I was trying to make with that is
Yep.
it's a huge number of colored folk doing it to each other, but we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to worry about that problem when we only want to worry about it when it's a cop that does it to a black person. We don't want to care about when black people are killing other black people. But if you, like we said, if you were an alien coming down to Earth and getting a view of America, and they would look at the numbers of blacks killing each other, they would go, "Oh wow, that is the way bigger problem than
Yep.
the white cops killing the unarmed black people." That's the only point I was trying to make. Like, yes, of course, white people kill other white people. Like, that's, yeah, just like black people kill other black people. But the disproportionate rate is the problem that I'm having. Like, if we want to worry about like if black lives really do matter, why aren't we addressing black lives killing other black lives at a disproportionate rate?
Josiah in YouTube chat says this guy has it backwards. When the media says something, they always leave out the race when it's black. Yes, exactly. Case in point, the CNN coverage of the two black girls who hijacked the Uber Eats driver's car and killed him. Their article did not contain a link to the video, which you would have seen that they were black in the video. They left out the video, and they also chose to screenshot of a clip of the video that didn't have them in the shot either, and they didn't list the race in the article either. They took every single thing out that would have indicated they were black. Yet, we saw the CNN and the rest of the media, in the case of the Boulder, Colorado shooting, he's white, oh my god, this is white supremacy, it's always white people. It's always white people. Always, always, every single time it's white people. That's what everybody said. And guess what? He wasn't white. So we're very generous towards black people in our culture right now, and we are very much less so against white people. So the T is correct. There is an imbalance in how it's talked about and how it's classified, but it's not in favor of white people. It's in favor of blacks.
Yeah, Jeremy Holly in a YouTube chat says you're glitchy on stereo for her too. So I think it is you, my friend.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe we'll just wrap it up because it's kind of taking a crap on our end. I don't know.
Is it still glitchy?
Yeah, it's still glitchy.
Okay. Well, let's. Man, we got so many comments in here. Let's.
Right. I don't want to wrap it up with so many dang comments, but I mean, we're just triggering so many people up in this podcast tonight.
Since the YouTube is fine, I think we'll just keep going. We'll power through it. See if my connection restores here.
Okay.
Let's see. This is a new guy. Hez Hands.
Black on Asian crime. Interesting. It's interesting to see two Caucasians talking about black on Asian crime.
What is happening?
But not hate crimes in general. Not the black on Asian massacres that be going on. The white on Asian massacres that be going on. Or the white on black massacres that's been going on. You want to point out, or we were talking about the tape of the guy beating the guy on the train in New York. That fight, when people lose a fight, now it's a crime. What are we talking about today? It's late for this kind of thing, but I'm interested in this. I'm curious about this first topic.
Man, you gotta fix your fire alarm there. The battery's dead. Or your smoke alarm. But that's interesting. I didn't know there were any white on Asian massacres. Could we get some references for that? Because I wasn't aware of any white on Asian massacres
well, and also
that were happening.
too, like you're not aware that there's been all kinds of attacks, black people attacking Asian people for no reason. Curb stomping little old Asian ladies in New York City for no reason, telling them you don't belong here. You know?
We've been covering a few stories here. Before you joined earlier in the stream, we went over 3 different stories from the last few days. One of them was the guy in the subway, yes, but then we also covered a video outside of, I think it was in New York, a black guy stomping on the head of an Asian lady, telling her that she doesn't belong here. So the point of this stream is to try and figure out why do blacks hate Asians? You know, is it something in the culture right now? Is it the China relationship? Is it the COVID? You know, what is it that's causing all these attacks? Because we've seen many of them. The anti-Asian hate movement is pretty large right now. You've probably seen that. And I think 95% of those attacks have all been from blacks. So we're just trying to figure out, you know, what maybe that could be coming from.
Yeah, well, he wants to sit here and say that we're Caucasians, but he doesn't know that I'm the token, like, somewhat Asian over here. So yeah, I'm just going to speak about it. And also too, like, the mainstream media has been talking nonstop for like the last year about the white on black massacre that you so like love to talk about. But that's why we're here talking about it, because the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about the black on Asian crime. So yeah, we want to have the discussion, my friend.
Oh, did he say white on black massacre, or did he say white on Asian massacre?
The white on Asian and white on black massacre.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not aware of any white on anybody massacres, but I know there's a couple mass shooting, or one mass shooting in the last week or two. But let's see, we got T back up.
It doesn't matter if you resist arrest or get violent.
Oh.
Europeans resist arrest and get violent more than black people actually do. And there are countless of videos of them cursing, driving off, armed and everything. And there is no death being done by it. So, I mean, sometimes you just got to be able to just see things for what it is. It's no different than lions. Lions are naturally being lions, but people are killing them. Elephants get killed. You know, they got hunting and killing as a sport of animals that are natural living creatures. So it's not about being aggressive or anything. It's just people just taking advantage and taking the law in their hands and feeling like they just want to kill somebody just because they can.
Oh boy.
I would disagree that when you say that there's no whites getting killed by police, because you can look at the FBI statistics and it'll prove you wrong on that. And also too, you can, if you want to just be super low ball and not do any research, just watch the TV show Cops. And how many times on that TV show do you see white guys getting shot by the police for no reason as well? Or if they are resisting, they get shot too. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. The FBI crime statistics do show that more white people were shot and killed by police than blacks, even though blacks committed more crime. So there is a disparity there. The data also suggests, and they've done studies on this, that cops are less likely to act when the perpetrators are black because they fear backlash from any kind of racist claims. But I don't think this guy is particularly interested in any kind of data or science. But here at the Weekly Narrative Alt-Centrist Podcast, we are very pro-science. We do appreciate science. So please, if you have any science studies to back up what you're saying, I would love to see it. We'll read it out on the chat.
Holly, you said self-esteem movement. Did I miss that? I'm going to honestly say I've never heard of that. It was a self-esteem movement, like, towards the kids. I mean, wow. Where the hell was I? I would love to know. I mean, I get that. I guess you got to make sure your kids are happy. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do as a parent. But at the same time, you're supposed to show your kids that if you do something wrong, there are consequences behind those actions. And this is your punishment. And that's what they get. Plain blank period. Nothing more, nothing less. And if anyone had a problem with that, then, I mean, they get cussed out. At least by me. You're not going to tell me how I need to raise my child.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that the helicopter parenting and the non-shaming parenting thing reached all families, but it was very predominant in American culture back then.
Yeah, and I think I remember it was probably the late 1990s is when the whole self-esteem movement was going on, and that was when I was exiting the That was when I was exiting the elementary school system. I was going on in middle school and high school and stuff. So I've luckily dodged that bullet.
All right, we got a new guy, Uzziah. Uzziah is up.
Hi, so I was just wondering what's up with the black on Asian crime conversation when it was a white male who could just commit this last mass shooting. Just a question, like, I'm down for both conversations, but I'm wondering where this topic coming from.
Yeah, good question, Uzziah. So we went over quite a few stories earlier in the stream of black on Asian violence. There was one in the subway in New York. We talked about a slideshow showing all the hate crimes in New York and how all the perpetrators were black. We went over video from, I believe, also New York, coincidentally. What's going on in New York, by the way? Of a black man stomping on the head of an Asian lady outside of a hotel, saying, "You're not welcome here." So that's kind of where this conversation sparked from. The particular case that you're mentioning in Atlanta, that doesn't seem to be particularly related because the motive was revealed by that perpetrator already. It didn't have anything to do with race, and he also shot 2 white people. So if there's something that we're missing there, maybe if there's a hidden motive that's been revealed that has to do with race, I'm definitely interested in hearing that, but I don't see how that's related at all.
Yeah, and also too, we live here in California, and in the Bay Area of California, there's been a huge increase of black people attacking Asians and beating them up and even killing them.
Yeah.
So
We're trying to figure out why. That's all.
we're just trying to figure out why. We're like, is it just like crimes of passion? Is it opportunity crimes? Is it like, is there some kind of, cultural thing going on? Like, we don't know. We're just here to ask the questions.
We got let's continue on. Let's see here. T's got another comment.
For me, is I'm very much aware deep off into the history. And what I know is history repeats itself, as we all know. Just because it's not the same people no more doesn't mean that the strategy hasn't changed. The strategy still remains the same. If a black melanated person came up with the idea that could bring the whole unity of black people all over the globe together, it would be detrimental to the European, because that means that we no longer need them. That means that we would be using our intelligence in a way that surpasses. So the thing is, is the European people ready to be in a position where somebody is telling you what to do? Because the person that is advanced has the ability and the power to lead. So if we take over the planet and put things right up in motion and putting things in its proper place, spirituality, religion, birthing and everything, then that means that you're going to have to follow us. Are you willing to be told?
I think white people and Europeans, as you say, they value meritocracy over anything, which means if whoever has the best idea, whoever is the most fit, whoever is the best fighter, whatever it is, they win. That's the whole principle that the West was basically founded on, is meritocracy. It doesn't have anything to do with your skin color. It's who has the better business idea, who's more innovative, who can create the better war technology. That's really what it is. So if you can compete, please do. Welcome into the arena.
Yeah.
But just remember, you're opening yourself up to loss as well.
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, my friend.
We've already been competing with enemies much larger than the black community, such as China, for a while. So I think we're up to the challenge.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, we need, if anything, we need the black leaders and the black innovators to come up with new ideas, because what we've been doing in the past hasn't been working clearly. So come up with an idea, my friend, instead of just blaming it all on Europeans and sitting there worrying about if Europeans are going to be threatened by black people rising up. No, we want you guys to rise up and do better. Like, we're trying to encourage you guys, give you ideas on how to do it.
Here's one from new guy, Copper.
Now, when you say very generous against black people, can you alliterate?
Happily. So when I say that, I'm referring specifically to the fact that we don't hear about massive black-on-black crimes that happen. And whether that's because the media thinks we don't care, or because the media doesn't want to paint black people in a bad light, I can't assign any motive to that because I'm not a mind reader. But I can tell you that if you pay attention to the news that isn't on the mainstream outlets, you'll see things like 2 weeks ago, 15 blacks were shot in Chicago. And in, I think, last weekend in Florida, there was a shootout as well. And the weekend before that, there was a lot of black violence in Miami. They had to actually put the city of Miami on curfew because of the violence that was occurring in the city. And we went over videos of that on our live stream here. And they were all black. But the story was twisted, and this is where the generosity that I'm talking about comes into play. The story was twisted by the mainstream media into a COVID narrative. Miami's going on lockdown because of COVID. No. Miami was on lockdown because of mass black-on-black violence. If you don't believe me, you can search Miami brawl videos. You'll find many of them. They had to shut restaurants down. They had to shut the city of Miami down because of these fights, this violence, people walking out on $1,000 restaurant bills. And every video that we've seen tells us that it was basically all black people. So this stuff isn't covered in the media. We don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. I don't know why, but we don't. And that's what the generosity that I'm talking about comes from. Again, with all the anti-Asian attacks that we're talking about today. San Francisco, New York, you name it. All these attacks. Did you see anything on your news station of choice about the black guy stomping on the head of the Asian woman outside the hotel today and saying that she doesn't belong here? Did you see your mainstream media outlet of choice covering the black man choking the Asian guy in the subway and hitting him in the head 20 times when he was basically trying to defend himself? I would guess no, and that's what I'm talking about when I say generosity. The media does not cover black on Asian violence. They don't cover black on black violence. But anytime it's a white person, even if it's not a real white person, like in Boulder, Colorado, that mass shooting, oh my God, they'll just call him white and hope he's white. But and later find out that he's not white because they want it to be white. Josiah says in YouTube chat, if a black man can be president and the richest woman is a black woman from the United States, how is there systemic racism? What can I as a Mexican do that a black cannot? Good question, Josiah. And I would say there's probably nothing stopping black people from being ultra successful in this country, aside from the own mental barriers they put up in their head.
Right.
Let's see. Okay, we got a couple. Am I sounding okay on stereo, Delaney?
No, you're still super choppy, my friend.
All right, let's go through like two more and then we'll call it because we've already gone for 2.5 hours anyway.
I was gonna say, yeah, we've gone over, but it's okay. I'm loving the conversation. I'm loving getting the juices flowing for our listeners on stereo.
Do one from Mike D here.
I think it's interesting this guy's talking about black people not wanting segregation when there's historically black colleges, which were unfortunately necessary because white people would not let them into their colleges. They're talking about segregating dorms. Then there's the programs which will only help quote unquote people of color, etc. So then there's the fact that there's that group NFAC, the not effing around crew, black nationalists run by some lunatic that thinks all AR-15s slam fire. So pretty interesting perspective that doesn't seem to be rooted in reality.
That's a good point. Yeah, it seems like we're going towards a trend now where blacks want to segregate themselves away from whites again. It's just segregation under a different name, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you go on Yelp and all of these like Uber Eats and stuff like that. You literally just click a button. It'll say, if you want to shop for black owned only, you can. It's like, okay, like y'all don't want segregation, but you guys want like to make your category like apart from the rest of it. Like you go on Netflix and it's like black stories. It's like, what? Okay.
Yeah, YouTube black stories.
Right?
Okay, let's do one from Copper and then one more from T and then we'll call it. Sorry, we can't get to all the comments tonight, guys. We're having some issues here.
To answer your question, I don't believe that there is any hate against the Asian community. To be honest, I think the black community and the Asian community are pretty tight. You keep saying that you haven't seen any news about white people attacking Asian people, that kind of makes me question, like, dude, where have you been? You know, it's like, are you reflecting? I don't know. Where have you been? Where have you been, and why don't you know this information?
Well, see, the difference there is that when you asked, I gave you specific examples of incidents. And when I asked, or when I said, I don't see these white incidents, instead of giving me specific examples, you just said, where you been? That doesn't lend me a lot of confidence that you can produce those stories. But if you can, I'm definitely willing to see those. You know, just give me a few examples. Like, just give me 3 or 4 examples, because I could give you probably 6 of Black on Asian violence right off the top of my head right here.
Well, I mean, the only one that they can give us, Jeremy, is the Atlanta one, but they are still under the impression that the Atlanta shooting was because of race, and me and you both know it wasn't because of that. I'm pretty sure that's what she meant when she was saying, like, where have you been? She was probably like, wait,
yes.
That's been plastered all over the news, and yes, it has, but if you actually do a deep dive in, like when they interviewed the guy why he did it, he didn't do it because he hates Asian people. He killed Asians and he killed a couple white people in there. He killed them because he was a sex addict and he was trying to take out the temptation to relapse on his sex addiction. So it had absolutely nothing to do with race. So that's why we're saying, like, that Atlanta incident had nothing to do with race. Yes, he did kill Asians, but he also killed white people too. So.
And that goes directly back to the generosity towards blacks and then the hostility towards whites, is that when it's a white person, we always assume the worst intent, even though in this case, he specifically gave us his motive and he said it wasn't racially motivated. People will still ignore that, pretend that they can mind read, and then call it racism. So let's do one more from T and then we'll call it.
So heart disease is caused by oil. This is fried food. This is the fried food, the oil industry that is being sold to us, corn oil, vanilla oil, all those oils. The cancers come from waste. This is digestive issues, waste getting caught up in the cells. Accidents, automotive industry, cardiovascular, stroke, those are sugar diseases that's causing the muscles to be weakened and dried out. Diabetes mellitus, also a sugar disease. Chronic lower respiratory, this is also a digestive disease. Assault and homicide is self-hatred disease brought on by bleach white flour, alcohols and sugars. Kidney disease is by alcohols, again, Alzheimer's disease, another sugar disease. So this is nutritional. And who controls the nutrition? The Food and Drug Administration. And can you tell me how many black people are working for the Food and Drug Administration or make the rules and regulations for it?
I was waiting to see where he was going with that.
Right, me too. I was like, what is this point he's trying to bring up?
But see,
so white people control the Food and Drug Administration, so that means that there's the grand conspiracy that because they control it, they allow black people to consume all this bad food for them when the black people are making the choice to consume the bad food.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
Well, this is a perfect example of the phenomena that we talked about multiple times today, where you instead of trying to figure out a way to solve the problem for yourself, you point at the farthest possible entity that you can. In this case, the FDA. You can't even tell me where the building is for the FDA. You don't know who works there. It's basically the point I'm making is it's an ephemeral entity that doesn't even really ever have any real existence in your life outside of these vague descriptions of what to eat. And that's what you're blaming the problems on. Like let's bring the responsibility and the control and the power a lot closer to our own self. Let's say that, we can pick and choose the foods we eat at the store. And then, of course, we're going to get into the argument of, there's food deserts in the black communities because the racism, they don't want to have healthy foods in the black communities. Well, that's not actually the case. These healthy food stores can't maintain business in those neighborhoods because there's too much crime. If you want some proof of that, simply look at how many Walgreens they had to close down in San Francisco because of crime in the last year. It's literally the quote-unquote food desert phenomenon happening right before your very eyes, and it's because of crime, not because of racism. And I think let's try to buck this trend of blaming the furthest possible thing from us, and try to take some more.
Sounds like a great use of energy, blaming blaming the FDA for all of the health problems in the Black community. Sir, if you know that all these things are bad for you, instead of blaming the FDA for not warning your people about all this bad food, why don't you warn your own people and warn your community and your close proximity of people that, hey, maybe you shouldn't be eating so much oil and so much fat. You know, that's going to go a lot better than blaming the white people that run the FDA. Even though there are probably people in the FDA that are Black people in the FDA, we just don't know about it because the FDA is a pretty, you know, it is a government-run organization, but there's still some parts of the government that we don't understand and we will never understand because we're not a part of it.
It's also a tacit argument for smaller government. So I think this guy's a libertarian. I think that's what he's trying to say. If you read between the lines, he's saying he's a libertarian because the FDA should not be a function of the government. But he sounds very knowledgeable in the food stuff. So obviously he was able to get that information from somewhere, right? And he probably had to seek it out himself, which means that anybody could seek out that information themselves if they really want to. But yeah, share that information with your friends. Start it from the ground up, you know, change your communities from the inside out. Don't rely on the government to change everything for you. And with that, yeah, Delaney's on fire, says M.A.
I try. I have my moments. I know I'm pretty dumb most of the time, but I mean, he just went on a tirade about, and he was speaking a lot of truth. And it's like, dude, instead of like, and then at the very end, you just blame it on the Europeans that run the FDA. It's like, dude, what? Oh my God,
well, see,
your thinking is so backwards.
That's the exact outcome. We watched a documentary, I think, about being poor in America a few weeks back on the live stream. And we watched this Black family, these 3 innocent Black girls that never had any real concept of racism, get basically confronted by their grandma, who is Black, of course. And the grandma did what? The grandma basically just completely mind wiped them, like, you know, Men in Black, where they flashy thing you. Instead of erasing your memory, she's putting all these ideas into your head about everywhere you go, everywhere you look, every problem that's in your life, it's related to the white people. It's related to the Europeans. It's related to the systemic racism. That's not the case. Not only is it not the case, but it's going to make you divert all of your energy and your effort into something that will never help solve the problem. So yeah, Delaney's right. You can fix the problem yourself. Take the responsibility and do it.
Yep.
All right, guys. That's we did 2 hours and 40 minutes here. If you're watching on live stream, you can listen to the podcast on Stitcher, Google, and iTunes. If you're listening to the podcast, you can watch us on youtube.com/weeklynarrative, or you can download the Stereo app. You can listen to the audio version there and submit voice questions, because I think we're going to be doing stereo every time from now on. It's working out. I'm liking the conversations, and I think YouTube chat likes it too. So
I'm enjoying it a lot, and plus I don't have to leave my house. I mean, I love your studio and all, Jeremy, but
you get to work remote now.
Yeah, I get to work remote now, so this is nice.
So if you guys liked it, do the subscribes, the follows, all that good stuff, whatever platform you're on. We would appreciate it. And we do this every Tuesday and Saturday at 7 p.m. PST. So we will be back here at Saturday, 7 p.m. For those who are listening on YouTube, we're going to be hanging out with the Ends Justify the Memes on that channel with All Minus One this Friday. It's a drinking stream, which there's going to be a bunch of people on there from a bunch of different YouTube channels, so it could get fun. I'll post an update on my Twitter if you guys want to check that out. We will see you then. I hope you enjoyed the stream as much as we did. Did you have fun, Delaney?
Oh, I had a great time, Jeremy. It's always good. And appreciate everybody that joined us in stereo tonight, even the ones that gave us dissenting arguments. That was awesome. Like, we love hearing those from you guys. So keep up the good work. Keep your ears open. Keep your minds open. Don't let the main narrative just corrupt your entire mind. That's all I have to say.
Well said. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.
All right. Night-night.